Okay.
They have some administrative things to do. They do that. They'll turn to me and
Should we
I'll-
grab a seat until we're ready?
Yeah, you can.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'd like to call to order the meeting this evening for the Planning Commission this March 7th at 6 p.m. The first order of business is the approval of minutes from February's meeting. Are there any corrections, changes?
Yeah.
Move for approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Kevin, if you would please present the first new business.
Okay.
This is Chick-fil-A. It located on 408 Baltimore Pike, Zone B3, General Business. The applicant's requesting approval to expand the existing drive-through lanes from a hybrid of 1 to 2 lanes to 2 lanes all the way through. It's difficult to ascertain the extent of the expansion to the canopy from what was approved in 2021. And the applicant should provide some kind of an exhibit relating to where the canopy is located. Drive-through facility associated with the restaurant use exists right now. The proposed and previously approved canopies are flat, horizontal, metallic planes supported by metallic columns wrapped in brick. The brick must match the brick on the existing building. Canopy must match the scale and color of the overhangs attached to the building over the doors and windows. The changes to the site removed and replaced several landscape elements around the disturbed area with no net loss, meaning whatever they're removing, they're replacing in similar or nearby areas. The shrub screen along both roads, both Kelly and Baltimore Pike, is proposed for replacement. That's because they had initially proposed inkberry, and that's just not taking the abuse very well. So you can it's not meeting the proposed screen that it needs to do. One street tree appears to be missing from the frontage along Kelly Avenue, and they can probably provide clarity on that. The exit from the drive-through uses pavement striping to direct vehicles to one exit lane. The staff feel this is not enough to aid drivers exiting the drive-through. So you have 2 people exiting and one ignores the striping. Now you've got possible conflict there. To avoid that, both pedestrians and vehicles, it's recommended Chick-fil-A extend the concrete curb or provide some type of textured paving that prevents people basically just going straight. And then I have recommendations, but I'll leave the rest up to the applicant.
Please give us your name and address, please, before you begin.
Sure. Well, thank you, Kevin. My name is Daniel Haney. I work with Bowler Engineering, representing Chick-fil-A as the civil engineer on the project. My address is 901 Delaney Valley Road, Towson, Maryland.
Microphone on.
Good afternoon. Gideon Lee with JLL. I'm the development manager supporting Chick-fil-A. Address is 505 Tatum Drive, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30022.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. I think Kevin did a great job of giving high level what we're looking to accomplish here. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the site as it exists today. What we're showing on the screen is a rendered site plan, so kind of a beautified version of the site plan to give context to what we're looking to accomplish here. I will say this all looks proposed and new, but the improvements are really limited to the drive-through of the site, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail here. So just the why of why Chick-fil-A wants to do it. As you know today, the drive-through starts as 2 lanes, so you enter the site via the single ingress-egress point on South Kelly Avenue and circulate around the front of the building to a drive-through that has 2 lanes at the entry. From that point, there was, as Kevin mentioned, a new canopy, the order point canopy, or face-to-face canopy, as Chick-fil-A calls it, where your order is taken, and then ultimately you merge down to one lane, turn the corner of the building, and receive your food at the pickup window. So, this is a high-volume store. It's, I think everyone in this area must enjoy going there because, they do well, and they're looking to improve the drive-through to better serve their customers, create a safe environment for team members that are working in the drive-through, both from the weather, so hence the canopies, and additional markings and signage to improve that circulation and safety. So to accomplish that, it's what Chick-fil-A would like to do is called dual flex lanes. That just means 2 lanes from the entry of the drive-through through the exit. It gives them the flexibility, the operator that is, to operate the drive-through in a way that best suits the needs of the customers that are coming. So in a non-peak time or a not busy time, the drive-through would probably operate just how it operates today, with the ability at the pickup location that if someone has a huge order and you've just ordered a milkshake, that you could, they could go up the stream, give you your food, and then you could go around them and get out of the drive-through. And then during peak times, the operator would have the flexibility to operate both lanes as dual fulfillment. So you could order your food in the second lane, stay in the second lane, and your food would be walked out to that lane by a team member. So as I mentioned, the safety component is important. So there is striping down the center of the drive-through, a 3-foot team member striped zone on the interior, and then a 2-foot striped zone up against the interior curb line. And then over both the location where you order and pick up your food, there's canopies covering both lanes. So those will have heaters and fans. So, the winter months provides heat for the team members, and then in the summer, cools it down a little bit. It also acts as a clear delineation of a stopping point for traffic, right? Your covered canopy, brick columns, as Kevin mentioned, matching the facade of the building. So, Chick-fil-A has done a lot of studies, and it's shown that having those large structures kind of indicates to slow down. You're in the meal pickup process or the ordering process. So that's all part of the science behind their drive-through and the efficiency with it. So one thing that Kevin mentioned I do want to show you is the relation of the canopies today to what we're proposing. So I'm going to switch to a plan that's not quite as good looking, but hopefully we'll tell that story. So this is our site plan in black and white, but the blue dotted lines are the canopies that are out there today. So you can see at the entrance to the drive-through, you have a single lane canopy that kind of wraps around the bend and covers just half of the first lane. And then at the pickup window, similarly, you have a canopy over the window that covers about half a lane. What's being proposed is, are 2 canopies that cover both lanes. So the order point canopy, or as I mentioned, face-to-face order canopy, is proposed actually around the bend. So that's going to provide a little bit more queuing behind the order point. So, less capacity for stacking back into the parking lot. And then at the pickup window, it will cover both lanes with columns on the outside. So again, no impediment to traffic using it as a bypass lane. And ultimately we'll provide that safety and cover. So, getting anything you want to add there operationally?
Yeah, just one quick thing. Thanks, Dan. That was very, very good. I guess just taking a quick step back on the reason why again, this is a national redevelopment program for all our existing restaurants. Pre-COVID, our main sales channels was predominantly dine-in, where you go in and park, sit down. But as we saw with COVID, that shifted towards mobile through, mobile pickup, and heavily drive-through focused. So we're simply retrofitting our existing restaurants to adapt to customer demand and build that capacity for these existing restaurants. A lot of these restaurants are on a scrape and rebuild or relocation in a certain amount of years. There's a period to that, but between that time that it gets a scrape, we come in and retrofit these restaurants to meet current prototype. And, you know, like Dan had mentioned, with 2 going down to 1, that has proven to be the severe bottleneck in a lot of our locations, where you have a $100 order at the pickup window and cars can't simply bypass. Where here, you know, you can walk upstream, like Dan had mentioned, to both lanes. So there's a couple of operational plays you can run here. Randy, he's a great operator at 2 locations, and he does a great job. And then the only other thing I'll add to that, Dan, I know that there's a interior component that will be modifying the parallel drive-through cockpit, which will increase capacity to kind of couple with our exterior improvements. So yeah, I'll leave it at that and open it up for questions. Nothing else.
Yeah, maybe just to add to Gideon's point about the cockpit, that area is where, you know, the food is delivered from. So today, and I believe the PDC is not, the door is not there, right?
It's not. I don't believe
Yeah, so you typically at a Chick-fil-A, you'll see it's, you know, a window, or really every fast food restaurant, food is being handed out to you. That will be retrofitted into a door, call it a Tormax door. So they could just open the top part and utilize it as a window, or they can kind of fold open the whole thing and walk right out. That improves the efficiency and adds that flexibility to walk out to the second lane.
And as a byproduct of that, you know, you're taking a lot of the cars out of the drive aisles and into our, you know, stacking and queuing capacity. So I think that's a huge win for our redevelopment program, for what it's worth.
Commissioner questions?
Yeah, what will there be to alert a drive-through customer as to whether you're in the 1-lane mode or the 2-lane mode? How would I know?
Sure. So team members at peak times, a lot of times they'll be out there directing traffic with high-vis gear. So they act as, you know, they wear a lot of hats. They take orders. They tell you to, hey, pull in front of this car. And if Randy is running what's called a bypass operation, where you still taper down to that 1 lane, you know, he'll likely have the magnetic bollards that you see out there. So he can, you know, place them as he sees fit. But 2 things: the team members providing, you know, traffic control, and then typically there's some sort of magnetic bollards that direct traffic that way. If that
Okay.
answers the question.
So it'll be mostly human being will.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I always like that. So that's good.
Other questions?
The only-
Comments?
The only question that I had, and you just addressed it, was are you going to put a door in there in the drive-through window versus like they do down in Abington or Severna Park where I saw it?
Yeah, absolutely. So with any parallel drive-through cockpit renovation, that's coupled with a Tormax door for that reason alone, for team members' circulation.
Do we need to do anything separate since it's a change to the building from the original approval? I mean, I don't have a problem with it because they
We
seem-
typically look for more than 5% of the building. So if it's not more than 5%, then it's
I mean,
something that
I
we
don't have a
review
problem with
internally.
it. I didn't know whether we needed
No.
consumption. Okay, good.
So just to make a comment, this is it's not a marketing scheme, you know, to bring in more business. It's something to make your service more effective.
Correct. It's to increase capacity at these existing restaurants. When real estate did their job before 2019, you know, they were looking for pads with, you know, the purpose of going down to a single lane at the pickup window because the dine-in was heavy at that time. But now, you know, we're coming back and retrofitting to increase capacity, not necessarily to bring in more customers. So, good question.
And the request to extend the concrete exit or whatever, the curb and so forth, that is part of this change?
So that is one thing we wanted to talk about, and I guess, you know, get opinions. I think we talked about the reason for the, you know, what we call the dual flex lanes, and part of that is also the ability for a team member to say, hey, can you pull forward and have someone pull around? Our concern with curbing it as like being completely restrictive would be it would make it difficult to have that scenario exist. We do want it to be intentionally signed and marked in such a way that you do have cars narrowing down to 1 lane in, 99% of the time. That should be the intent of the exit condition. I will tell you, all new store Chick-fil-A's and virtually all the ones that Gideon's referring to that are part of this program have a dual lane exit that functions in reality with the team member support. But in discussing with Chick-fil-A, they are willing to do a textured pavement or something that further, delineates that, you don't want to just roll right over it and not notice. So we're open to suggestions in that regard, but we would prefer to keep it with the ability to, slowly pull forward.
Good. And you are going to replace those shrubs that have,
Yeah, so the entire, let me go back to the, well, this is another not very pretty plan, but again, you can see the kind of the darker line types on here. So the shrub row along both frontages will be completely replaced. I think there's a new ordinance or a new section of the landscape manual that determines the actual planted height or size of the material, and I think it used to be smaller. So some of these have had a hard time maturing and creating their desired buffer. So Chick-fil-A was happy to at Kevin's request come in and bring it back up to the standard that's expected. And then also, to Kevin's point, any trees that were impacted are just being relocated, not altogether removed.
okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. Would someone like to move forward with a motion?
Public comment?
Any public comment from the Chick-fil-A?
We thought that's why everybody was here.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Now, if you'll give your name and address, please.
Hi, Sam Circo, 600 North Shamrock Road. So the traffic getting in and out of Chick-fil-A, especially around lunch and dinner, kind of stinks. Everyone knows that, and traffic up and down Route 1 everyone complains about. So I don't know if this would be for the applicants or for the board as well. Had there been any recent traffic studies done on connecting Kelly Avenue all the way through into Howard Park? Because really, at some point, you're going to have to increase circulation around town and on Business 1 if you want to do anything to mitigate that. And there's not a whole lot of chances left. I know McPhail Road, they're not going to connect because of the school board. It'd be tough to reconfigure the end of Bond Street because I think that's a state road. So really the only place left, unless you're going to magically build a new road somewhere else, would be to reconnect Kelly Avenue back through. And I just didn't know if that had come up in any kind of traffic study recently.
I think
they've
I
been involved
can
with.
answer that. So far, we have not studied that possibility. However, there was a study done about 5 years ago in partnership with the county that reviewed, and it's called the Route 1, Route 22 corridor study, and that's on our website. And one of the options, which is a long-term option, is connecting Kelly, both the residential portion and the commercial portion together.
I'd be in favor of that. That's all.
You'd have to understand that there's a reason why that was closed off about 40 years ago, and that was to protect the neighborhood from drive-through traffic. And
My father lived there at the time, and he told me all about that, and the mall and
if you open
George
it
Street and
back up
Bolton
now,
Street,
then
yeah.
that's exactly what would happen. And the neighborhood is pretty fragile to begin with and gets plenty of through traffic going to Harford Mall, at least back when Harford Mall was more vibrant. So that's why it's closed.
Right.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
Any others?
Any others? Anyone else like to speak? Okay.
Did you guys want to address the textured concrete, what you guys want to slow it down? I think Kevin had recommended textured concrete.
I'd recommend either curb or textured concrete.
Yeah.
They're okay with textured. We're certainly okay with that. So.
Whatever you guys want to do. I just thought I'd point it out so you know what to write in the letter.
All right.
Oh, and I would also, before you get in recommendations,
Mm-hmm.
we had two supplemental comments come from. One came from Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company, and the other from Maryland Department of Transportation. SHA did not have any comment, but Volunteer Fire Company did have a few comments, and I wanted to just, when you go for your motion, to add that into your recommendations for the site plan. That would be comments dated, if I can find them.
25th?
Yeah, comments from Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company dated February 25th.
They don't have a knockbox now?
They probably do. But sometimes you'll get these and they'll just recirculate the same comments.
Did the applicant receive these?
We have not to this point.
Okay, so it's building will require a knockbox to be installed.
Oh, sorry, we did receive them just now.
Just now.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
All
were,
right.
they were
So we're
posted on the
reading them.
website,
Yeah.
but I was on vacation, so it
It's all
never
good.
got to the applicant.
As long as you guys saw them.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Is there any objection to those comments?
Well, how
No,
about
I think
how
to
about
your
the fire
point-
hydrant at Atwood? They're not even at Atwood.
Yeah, I think they appear to be generic comments stating, we'll put a Knox box in if there's not one, or the fire hydrant doesn't seem impactful to this property.
Well, no, I
Um,
mean, if we do this, then you're required to do it. That's
Right.
why I'm just-
If it's your determination, I see what you're saying. Baltimore Pike at Atwood is a ways away. And that's something that can be required or should have been required when Raising Cane's
I
came
was
in.
gonna say, Raising Cane would be more response. but-
So I would say that's probably not something that needs to be required of these folks.
So will we be adjusting the letter?
Yep, you would just say, you would revise you'd make your motion that excludes that comment.
When did it go out of service? Do we know?
When did,
The hydrant go out of service?
I don't know.
I mean, that's okay. I just was wondering when the.
Yeah,
Clearly
I
they-
don't know when it was taken out of service.
Okay.
And that is something that we can, if we reach out, Raising Cane's has not gotten their final plan approval. That's an engineering consideration that we can talk to Raising Cane's about.
All right.
You know,
I have a
your
motion on the,
competition, yeah.
do I have a motion on the special development?
Well, we need to first move that and I will move, that the proposal is consistent with the 2022 comprehensive plan for the proposed development as required by Town Code 165-19.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Coates seconded. I don't know if you heard that.
Sorry.
Okay, I will next move that the approval of the special development for drive-through service would be based on the following findings of fact: that the applicant has adequately demonstrated the proposed drive-through service use continues to meet the performance standards of Section 165-53.I parentheses 2C, addressing the following performance standards. It's required that we read all this into the record, so just bear with us, please. The use is designed, number one, the use is designed so that pedestrian safety is maintained and vehicular circulation is improved with the addition of another lane, which will lower potential impact of adjacent properties based upon the February 7th, 2024 traffic letter from Traffic Concepts. Number two, drive-through lanes are marked with distinctive pavement markings and/or special striping, and the proposed improvement will add measures which addresses the blocking of exits or entry to off-street parking spaces required on the site. Number three, adequate spaces for stacking at drive-through facilities are provided. Number four, noise from speaker systems is regulated to meet state of Maryland standards for control of all noise pollution. Number five, drive-through windows and vehicular queuing lanes are located along the side and rear facades and not between the building and primary public right-of-way.
Second. Yep.
Keith?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that the site plan be approved based on the conditions in the staff letter dated. Staff letter date.
March,
March.
no, February 22nd.
Yeah, February 22nd. One, the Bel Air Department of Public Works dated February 20th, 2024. Two, the Department of Planning and Community Development comments to place a paving that is consistent with allowing the drivers to know that it's not a straight out blacktop. So whether it's stamped concrete or you put paver bricks in, something along those lines. The Planning Commission has a signature block on the plat. The architectural elevations for the adjusted canopies are in harmony with the existing building design materials. The fire department email
February 25th.
dated February 25th that you have a knock box or install one if it's not attached or currently attached, and not using combustible landscaping such as wooden chips or mulch directly next to the building, but you guys have stone, so that's just.
Second.
Okay. Keith?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. And finally,
Make a motion for the landscape plan prior to building permit application, submission of a final landscape plan for signature, incorporating comments from this staff report and comments from Bel Air Department of Public Works dated February 20th, 2024, Bel Air Department Planning and Community Development comments, and A, replace the missing street tree on Kelly Avenue.
Second.
and I wonder if you want to add the replacement of the shrubs. Is that
I think that's within
necessary?
there. That's already proposed.
Okay, very good. And we have a second, I believe.
Second.
Okay, Keith?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, would you present the next order of business, please?
Okay, this is for Z-Vault. They're located at 201 South Main Street. The property is Zone B2, Central Business District. The applicant's requesting approval to permanently construct an outdoor dining bar service use at the same location as it is operated in similar temporary use for the last several years. In addition, the applicant wishes to have a drive-through service use approved. Both are considered special developments. Due to the need for upgrades to the site based on the outdoor dining request, a site plan and landscape plan are also required. The drive-through service associated with the restaurant is currently operating without a permit. The use is not a true drive-through use as typically developed in the past. There is no ordering board or associated intercom. Patrons view an ordering board and order pickup at the window that was previously developed as the bank drive-through. So you're basically going up to the window saying, this is what I want, and then you sit there and wait until they prepare it for you. The capacity of the queuing lane is a maximum of 3 cars, which does not meet the minimum of 7 to 9 required for a typical drive-through use. It's recommended the drive-through use area provide pavement markings and signs to indicate its use and appropriate traffic direction and operation. Designated space may be appropriate for patrons to use while their order is being filled, and that's something of a pull-up or a pull-over. Typically, these type of uses have an app, and you order on your app, and then you just come pick it up. So at that point, there's no need for any real sizable queuing. So a sign at the entrance from Main Street indicates enter here, but it seems to be pointing towards, or it seems to be indicating that you're entering the drive in front of the building, which is actually an exit drive. So that sign just needs to be relocated. The outdoor dining bar service is currently operated as a temporary use through the resolution 1211-23, and that extends the use of tent permits and temporary use permits past the maximum of 30 days. This proposal will make that use permanent and no longer subject to temporary use permit requirements. If you recall, this dates back to the initial COVID restrictions, where people had to expand outside their restaurant, and that's what Zval did, along with many other places. The proposed improvement will establish a deck on the existing asphalt pavement, including a perimeter barrier on the drive lane side. The deck also includes handicapped access. 5 parking spaces will be permanently lost with the addition of the outdoor dining. However, parking is not required in the commercial B2 business area for service and retail. The temporary use is operated without a problem for several years, as there are 17 spaces which remain for patrons to utilize. Based on the submitted plan, staff has the following comments. All existing Jersey barriers must be removed. The proposed use is limited to 30 seats based on the submitted plan, but there's a conflict. Shows 28 seats on one plan, 30 seats on another. The materials of the post, railing, deck, pickets should be provided at the hearing. The material of the handicap ramp must be provided at the hearing, along with the proposed slope. The post for the deck must be anchored in concrete minimum of 3 feet below the grade. You don't want to have posts there if you have vehicles driving next to where people are dining. Let's see. Details regarding lighting must be provided if lighting is proposed. No overhead canopy is permitted, and only umbrellas may be proposed. Concrete curb is provided on the north side of the access from the main street south of the dining area to protect diners from entering vehicles. This should be labeled as concrete curb and gutter. For the site plan, the site must be brought up to code regarding some of the site elements and the materials. All existing asphalt curb located near Main Street entrance must be upgraded to concrete curb and gutter. The submitted plans also must be revised to address the following comments. All plans submitted must have appropriate titles indicating the information contained therein. There really is no title for most of these plans. For sheet C21, remove or reduce the number of note references on the plan. They're just a bunch of numbers, and it's confusing for us anyway. And I know how to look at a plan, so it's difficult. Add the number of parking spaces on the plan, indicate spaces lost, and the number that remains and the number that remain in the notes. Indicate the number of seats provided in the interior of the restaurant in the notes. Indicate the area of enlargement shown on A2 and reference the plan. Add the road names. Add the vehicle queuing graphics similar to what's shown in the landscape plan, and this should be adjusted to be consistent with the location of pickup window, which reduces the stacking to 3. So they're showing stacking, but they're showing the stacking past the vehicle, the pickup window for orders. Sheet A2, label the handicap space, width of the drive lane, and material of the proposed curb. Provide a scale on the plan, which appears to be 1/4 equals 1 foot. Provide signature blocks matching the sheet C21. The landscape planting schedule must be revised to indicate size, spacing, and height as shown on Exhibit A, and that's been attached to your package, and revise the proposed plants as indicated also in that same graphic. It is recommended that shrubs be provided along Churchville Road frontage to meet Section 165-59, and that's buffering of parking to right-of-way. This regulation adds 12 shrubs along the northern boundary of the property. In addition, 2 additional shrubs, total of 7, are recommended to extend the shrubs along Main Street near the entrance off of Main Street. Barberry is considered appropriate. Normally, we don't allow barberry, but there's already existing barberry there. Revise the scale to plan to 1 inch equals 10 feet. It's mislabeled. Revise the signature blocks to reference landscape plan instead of a site plan. And then the recommendations are listed.
All right. Ju-
All righty. So my name is David Stoker, and I'm with Stoker Associates, architectural firm, and the address is 121 Royal Oak Drive. And I wanted to say that I think we're in spring. The grass outside is starting to green up. I'm happy. Okay, so all of his notes we're going to do, no problem. And in fact, I sent a revised set just yesterday. Kevin looked at it, says, I'm not sure, did they get the revised one or the older one?
We received a revised plans, but I can't review something.
Okay, that's fine. The revised ones are basically, I tried to address what he was saying in his notes. There's like no change to the design itself. It's just mostly notes that had to be revised. So a little history. This building, many of you have seen, I think before, back in the maybe mid to late 80s, it was an Equitable Bank with 2 drive lanes. Then I think what was that other bank that was there?
Maryland National Bank at some point.
Was it?
I think so.
Bank of America.
Bank of America? Okay.
Yep, yep.
And then they left, and Z-Vault bought the building, and now they've been occupying it for a good while. We got a permit for it, for the Z-Vault. At that time, by the way, we had the drive-in window. It was just not recognized. It was there. Anyway, and we're not proposing to change that drive-in window. So what we're trying to do here is to change going from the temporary dining area to a permanent dining area. And of course, try to make it look a little better. That's our goal. So this is an existing photo, good old Google Maps. This is the street view. This would be if you were standing in Route 22 looking, I think, south. Here you have the road with that white truck in it. Then you have a sidewalk. Then you have a landscaping area, which, by the way, we're planning to add more plants there. Then you have a drive-in, drive, and then you got the building. That's the gray building on the left. All right, let's see what else I can find. And some of you are probably very familiar with these buildings. This would be closer to the intersection, right at Main and 22, looking back up 22. You see 22, then the driveway, then the landscaping area, the drive, another drive, and then the building. To the right of that building, between Main Street and the building, is our temporary dining area. You can see some of the landscaping that's within the right-of-way there and the trees. Okay. This one would be all of these are existing. This one would be on 924 Main Street, looking at, you have the road, then the parking spaces, then a driveway. You have some landscaping. Then there's a concrete wall, a low wall. You see some of the temporary dining areas there. And then you see the building in the background. Basically, we're not changing that hardly at all. changing materials. That's basically what we're doing. Okay, let's get to what we're looking at. Well, headed for the landscaping plan. Okay. The concentration is, the focus is at the proposed dining area, and then the landscaping area between Route 22 and the building is the areas that we're focused in. So you're seeing the entrance, which is a two-way entrance on Main Street, and then the drive-through is, again, this is an existing drive-through that we're continue to use, and here's the cars. All right, the drive-through window is for this guy. Hopefully he didn't wait too long either. If they want to drive back around, many people who do in the drive-through will just go out onto Route 22. If they want to drive back around and park, there's a drive lane going back to the parking area. The ADA parking space was there in the beginning and continues to be in the same place with no change to it. So let's see what else. We're adding some more landscaping between the entrance and the new dining area. What else? That's pretty much what we're doing.
How many cars can you stack in the drive-through lane before you're out into Main Street?
Oh, well, we didn't even look at that one. We're not any close to that one, but here's.
Business isn't that good?
Well, yeah. Here's 3. Remember this lane, this one next to it, it's not even being used right now. But you could see, you could probably get another 6 cars in there if they wanted to back up. The operator is here. If you would like to ask them their operations of it. But you know, as far as I know, it's never, in the last few years, it's never backed up more than those 3.
Well, that would be relevant to me to know.
Yeah.
Because there's.
Yeah.
if we
Well,
had-
what
if
I'm
we had a
saying is,
stacking problematic
if
in
you
Main Street, that
had
wouldn't be good.
another 4 at least, so that would be a total of like 7.
Okay.
It could fit. Those additional 4 would block parking spaces. Oh, okay.
I'm Erica Zazelak and.
Could you lower that, please?
Sorry, Erica Zazelak and 535 Old Chopper Road. And I own. Erica Zazelak, 535 Old Chopper Road, Joppa, Maryland. So the way we handle the drive-through, typically when people order, they typically scoot around the building and go to the main entrance, and usually people carry the order out to them. So that there's another lane that was used when the bank had it, but that lane is not used when it gets built up, the traffic. One of the members hops out with that iPad, and they will take the order in the second lane and push them through. So there's never been a backup with a problem with parking and backing into the street. We've never experienced that.
The number, I mean, I just put a scale to it. It's 7 spaces before you go out onto Baltimore Pike.
So even more.
But you'd be blocking either the access or the egress.
You'd be blocking the parking, yeah. You'd be blocking the parking.
But we never have the problem blocking anywhere. Unfortunately.
Talk to Chick-fil-A if they're still here.
Yeah, we
maybe
have
they
to
can
get
help
them on
you.
board.
They needed 2 lanes.
No.
Different business. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
One of the things that they told me is that their hours, they're basically, if you could, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, our hours are basically 7 to 4 every day, so.
So they're not open in the evenings.
How about the comfort level between where the, your customers are seated? You know, cars are going to be coming in between.
Yeah, it's a comfortable distance there. It's not tight.
Yeah. So from where a customer would be seated to a car is probably anywhere from 15 to 20 feet. So.
Questions, comments?
The note on the site plan says that where the seating is will be raised wood plank deck. How raised is it?
About 5 inches.
Okay. And the ramp is the same material?
Yeah, that's the plan. Well, what we're showing now is wood, the planks, just like the deck would be made out of. Tell you the truth, sometimes contractors like to do about concrete because it's a little bit easier. I happen to like the idea of doing it out of wood deck or the composite deck materials. So it looks, kind of blends all together.
What do you,
I'm proposing now, the deck materials.
okay, and that, if we approve this, that's what you're locked into.
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
The drive lane adjacent to the deck is 15 feet wide. These are all labels that should have been on the plan.
Right.
Speaking of that, Commissioners, I just wanted to point something out. I have a little bit of a legal concern in moving forward with this case for 2 reasons. Number one, the applicant dropped off plans that you have not seen, and they are sitting on Kevin Small's desk, and no one has seen them. So we don't know, this is what you have, but we don't know what it is. The other more concerning thing to me is that back in February, the Department of Public Works, Mr. Klein, its director, sent a memorandum and said, I can't review this site plan because it does not comply with the basic requirements for the Department of Public Works to be able to comment and provide those comments to you. I understand certain agencies, such as State Highway Administration, take a lot longer, and we can, definitely caveat any approval based on whatever those comments are. But when it's our own Public Works, they can turn it around pretty quick. I'm a little concerned about sort of ignoring that open question mark. So I just wanted to throw that out to you guys in case there is any subsequent decision and an objection raised. That might be a very weak point in the case. So I just want to put that out.
Thank you. And
Yes.
I had that same concern as soon as Mr. Stoker said that he had just dropped off revisions to the plan yesterday that was not timely.
Yeah, you guys are not going to review that one.
I really.
That's fine.
If those are of any consequence at all, I think it would be wise for us to continue this on into April, rather than act on tonight with a big question mark.
And yes, and that would also give Kevin the opportunity to review.
Sure.
I didn't mean to leave you out.
Correct.
But he hasn't even had an opportunity to review it and issue an amended staff report. So that's just a concern of mine in moving forward.
I haven't found anything to object to, but there's just too many loose ends for tonight.
I understand.
Approval.
With the water and sewer,
I'd be anxious to get that Jersey barrier out of there.
yeah, I hear you, I hear you. With the water and sewer, there was no change to it, so that's why we didn't deal with it. But, yeah, we're not changing in any way. Of course, if the water and sewer department says we've got to do something, I don't expect them to, because we're not adding water, we're not adding sewer or anything like that. It's existing that they approved before. But yeah, whatever, and if you want to make it contingent on his comments, that would be fine too.
We just want to, I would move that we
Absolutely.
just continue the application to next month.
Table it until then.
Second.
What about
It's
the-
continue, it's not table, it's
Okay.
continue.
What about the permit? He does not have they do not have a permit for the drive-through? Is
Well,
that something we
they
will
need to
grant?
have that drive permit through that. You're providing that. So,
Okay.
that drive-through would have to be approved before they could use it. So technically, you know, and to be honest, there hasn't been that many cars I've seen go through the drive-through.
Mhm.
I actually went and talked to one of the servers, and she said that hardly, you know, they don't get too many. But, yeah, that would be the way it would work. It's, the drive-through could not be in use for the next month.
All right, so he would be they would be addressing all the items that have been submitted
Right,
to them.
and I'm kind of looking at a calendar here. Can you turn around changes in 1 week?
Yeah, since I did most of them already.
Okay. So what the town will do is review comments and give them back to you on the 14th. That's a week from today.
Mhm.
And then you would turn around and provide final plans that meet all of those requirements on the 21st. And then you would be good to go for April 4th.
Okay. What,
If it takes
On-
longer, we'll still be here in May, probably.
yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
will.
It was my understanding that when we got our permit for Z-Vault, and we showed the drive-in at that time, wouldn't that be a permit? It showed drive-in, and it had the window.
I don't have any I don't have any record of any site plan submission for Z-Vault, and this has been a special development for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a permit, it may have been a building permit,
Yeah,
but, as far as the drive-through operating,
okay.
planning and zoning wasn't aware of it.
Okay. I mean, right now, I don't see any problem with the design that we're talking about. We may, like you guys were saying, we may need to add striping. 'Cause right now, there's not any striping yet,
Mhm.
so.
I just want to add that when we redesigned the building and accommodated this cafe, we told them there was a drive-through, and they even told us where to put the arrows and where to put the sign. So I'm confused why that wasn't approved at the time, honestly, as a owner, because we clearly stated what we were going to do with it and how we were going to accommodate the people and the traffic. So I'm not sure what happened there, where the disconnect came.
Well, we can certainly go back and look at our records again, but we don't have any, I look back every time somebody comes in. If they don't have a record of a special development approval, which that's what this drive-in requires, then, you know, that we would proceed with requiring that permit to come in. That's why we required it for tonight. Otherwise, you wouldn't be
Would he
talking
be
about
here?
it.
And I just have a very general question. It's stated that in the second floor of the building is a wellness spa. What is offered there?
Not any longer.
Not any longer.
Yeah, it's all the same, we're the same tenant now.
Very good.
But the use is empty then. That's, when I knocked on the door, nobody answered.
Well, it's a space that people can rent out to use for showers, baby showers, things of that nature.
Great, okay.
Do we have a motion to continue?
In a second, I think you already have a
We
second.
got
I second.
You seconded? Keith?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to, Kevin.
No, I don't think it's needed. If you're going to continue it, there'll be a chance for public comment next month.
Very good.
And they'll be commenting on updated plans.
Thank you. All right, Kevin, if you'll present the next item, please.
That stuff to you earlier. Next time.
If anybody is here for Z-Vault, that will come back up, assuming they submit in a timely manner on April 4th. Keep an eye on the website. Okay. You guys ready? I don't know, I lost our town council. Okay. Oh, wait. I had an adapter. I do. There you go. HDCP. What does that mean?
If we can,
There you go. I can't tell you what that means.
Lost Wi-Fi. They lose Wi-Fi.
It's not up on your screen? It is.
Oh, gosh. I'll have to postpone this one. When I get a staff report that's longer than War and Peace, I get worried. When I get a staff report that's longer than War and Peace, I get worried. Here we go again.
You can see when you just hit it.
There you go. I want that back. Okay, everybody's here?
Yep.
All right, this is standard on bond. It's located at 128 and 130 North Bond Street, and what is tentatively labeled as 100 Lester Way. That was a address that was tendered at Board of Appeals when there was a building there that no longer is the case. So that may be, just have no address, and it would be Lester Way itself. The property is zoned B3A. That's General Business Gateway. The current existing land uses are 128 North Bond, which is a house of worship. 100 Lester Way, again, that is Lester Way developments, that's undeveloped. 130 North Bond is a shopping center. And there is what I'm calling the Gordon Street property, because it's addressed off of Gordon Street, and that's property that's owned by Hartford Mutual. And I'll reference that when we talk about that. Let's see. The applicant is requesting site plan and landscape plan approval for a 5-story mixed-use center consisting of 25,880 square feet of commercial space and 30 residential multifamily dwellings. And that's in the B3A, I've explained that, zoning district. A mixed-use center is a special development in the B3A district and has performance standards associated with that use. In addition, the applicant is proposing an outdoor dining bar service associated with an anticipated restaurant on the first floor of 128 North Bond Street, which has separate performance standards also. The development will require a subdivision of the properties, consolidating parcels and conveying road improvement right away to the town. There are some requests associated with this proposal that the Planning Commission must approve separately. These requests are to share parking, and that's somewhat typical in mixed-use development. And their request is to share 79 spaces between the residential and commercial uses. These shared spaces appear to be all the parking not dedicated for exclusive multifamily use. However, the legend and graphic somewhat conflict, and the applicant is encouraged to address the parking tonight. The concept for sharing a parking is an inherent benefit of mixed uses, provided that these uses have peak periods that do not conflict. The request is based upon conclusions of the attached letter dated January 18th from Traffic Concepts. There is 8,600 square feet of designated for office use and 30 multifamily units within the mixed-use development. The residential requires 53 spaces, would typically require most of the parking in the evening and the weekends. And the office use, which would require 30 spaces, would utilize a majority of the parking during the weekdays. This relationship appears to meet the criteria found in section 165-51B5. The applicant must meet the agreement requirement within this code section, meaning they have to put together an agreement between all the uses that they're going to share the parking. The second request is to construct 60 tandem or stacked parking spaces to service both commercial and residential uses. This request must be based upon section 165-51F1E, demonstrating that there will be no adverse impact on the use and the circulation of the use and circulation of the parking area. Stacked parking appears to have functioned well in residential applications such as Overlook at Gateway condominiums, with units requiring 2 spaces utilizing the tandem parking option. However, there are limited examples of stacked parking applied to commercial uses, and staff is concerned about that arrangement and is encouraging the applicant to explain how this parking is going to work. And one item that the staff has added is the need of the Planning Commission to make a determination regarding the reduction of a required 3-foot setback of commercial parking to adjacent commercial use. And that's found in table 165-59I. That's for spaces on the north side of the subject parcel. This waiver appears to be necessary since the existing parking associated with 130 Bond, the existing shopping center, is up against the parking or the property line. And the new parking would need to align with that. So if all of it is up against the property line, the new parking would also have to be. The applicant has also requested interpretation of the zoning administrator that the plan submitted to the Board of Appeals has not substantially changed as it relates to the front yard setback variance for 128 North Bond and the parking aisle with the variance for the existing parking located on north of 130 North Bond Street. And to take a step back, this project came before the Board of Appeals and requested several variances. They were granted 3. 2 of them were setback variances from Lester Way to allow the buildings to be closer to the road than a building that exceeded 45 feet could be. Given the fact that the town is exacting right-of-way improvement area, that is something that, and that the existing 130 North Bond is a building that exists. To put a building in between would require some reduction in the setback, and that's what the Board of Appeals provided. So, but they're only utilizing one of those because that is, the other building's gone now. The other one is the reduction of the existing parking drive aisle width. That, again, was an existing drive aisle. It just didn't meet code, so they got a variance for that width of drive aisle. The notable change, again, from the Board of Appeals plan is the reduction of the proposed development from 2 buildings to 1. However, 128 North Bond does not appear to have changed in any substantial way in relations to its orientation on the property. Parking 130 North Bond remains as shown on the Board of Appeals plan. So the parameters associated with the plan accompanying the variance application, which were noted as creating uniqueness and practical difficulty, had not changed in the Planning Commission submitted plan. So we have made an interpretation that the plan has not changed substantially. Special development. The mixed-use center requires several performance standards to be addressed. These have been annotated in the information that's attached in your package. The development must provide a unified arrangement of buildings, service areas, parking, signage, and landscape. The parking area must minimize through traffic and protect pedestrians from vehicle conflict. The refuse and recycling area is enclosed and accessible, which is required in the performance standards. The service area is exposed, however, convenient and safe access for the trucks require a centralized location and prohibit extensive screening. An auto turn analysis is also provided to you in your package and indicates truck access is not impaired for loading and refuse service at the proposed locations. The traffic analysis provided by the applicant has been reviewed by Harford County, State of Maryland, and the town. A separate letter has been generated by the town, which was provided to you just a couple of days ago, approving the submitted study with conditions. A development agreement is required to tie all of the property owners under the mixed-use umbrella as unified scheme of development and allow for comprehensive zoning enforcement. Meaning, if something happens at 130 North Bond, everybody gets notified. They're all in the same boat. The development will also have outdoor dining bar service as shown in the proposed site plan. Attached are performance standards associated with that use.
Bar service, but not a bar out there. Did I read that correctly?
The way that the interpretation we have is that the bar, a physical bar, has to exist out there, similar to what you would see with Looney's or McGurk's. They can still serve alcohol, but they cannot have a physical bar out there.
So there is no bar out there.
There is no bar that they're
Bar
proposing
service,
unless
but
they
no
tell us
bar.
tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
No, there's no bar planned for the outside.
The proposed exterior area will contain 81 seats, which has been proffered by the applicant, which is below the 75% of the seating proposed for the restaurant within the building, which has been also proffered at 116 seats. These cannot be changed. Once you've agreed on it, they cannot be exceeded. The outdoor area wraps around the building from North Bond Street to Lester Way. This area is on the anticipated restaurant use. The need is based on the anticipated restaurant use occupying the first floor. And a parking analysis provided by the applicant indicates the anticipated parking at various peak periods never reaches the limit of 128 spaces, which is what is the total provided. Given the number of seats, both inside and outside of the restaurant use, recommend the patrons be directed to off-site parking in the evenings. Lester Way does not permit on-site parking anymore. That was a change that was made just last month. The applicant has provided several colored elevations, perspectives of the proposed development that indicate the proposed architecture. These renderings have been provided to the town architectural consultant for review, and the comments were attached to your supplemental package. The proposed building is 5 stories with retail service on the first floor, residential on floors 2 through 4, I hope I got that right, and office on the top floor. A cross-section of the building showing the proposed arrangement of space has been provided, and that's in a separate package in your review. Staff are unsure if there's any modification is proposed for the existing shops at 130 North Bond. It appears this building may not be consistent with the design of the proposed structure as it relates to materials group design and architectural details. So that we're encouraging the applicant to address that. Property has a total of 1.674 acres consisting of 4 parcels which are owned by the applicant or subject to a long-term lease, and that includes the Hartford Mutual parcel. Proposed development consists of 130 North Bond, 7,000 square feet, requiring 25 spaces. 128 North Bond, 10,280 square feet of retail service, 36 spaces. 8,600 square feet of office, 30 spaces. That equals 91 spaces required for the mixed use. 128 North Bond has 15 one-bedroom units requiring 23 spaces and 15 two-bedroom units requiring 30 spaces. That's 53 total for a total of 144 spaces for the development required. Required parking is provided in various formats. 60 spaces, again, are tandem or stacked. 30 spaces must be dedicated to the residential units and signed accordingly, meaning each unit gets one space that is signed just for them. 16 spaces, at a minimum, must be shared between the residential and commercial uses. Now, you may recall they're proposing 79. The minimum is 16. 2 spaces, actually, in our code, count as 4 because they are pickup, drop-off, delivery spaces for the restaurant. And they also have to be signed accordingly. The applicant is encouraged to provide additional explanation regarding how all this works. It would appear the greatest opportunity to coordinate stacked parking would be for the residential and office uses. The service use on the first floor of the 128 North Bond and 130 North Bond Street will share the loading unloading area. So you see that in the middle of your the design. Refuse recycling is recorded in the central portion of the site and be used by the entire mixed-use center. The zoning obligation for open space is based upon section 125 or 16552, which requires 15% of the total project area meet the standard, with 40% of that 15% provided in what we have termed as active open space. The proposed development, again, must meet 1.674 acres of the total acreage. Passive open space is 1.51. Active open space is 0.1 acres. And then total open space would be 0.251 acres based on the property acreage. But the town also requires, when you exceed a certain density, to add additional open space based upon the unit count. So an additional 200 square feet per unit at 0.138 acres is also required. Based on the numbers outlined, there's a total of 0.389 acres of open space, which must include 0.238 acres of active open space. The site plan notes have been updated, and this is something that I should make clear. The site plan notes have been updated, so you would need to look for open space counts and total acreage in the memo that's been provided by the applicant. Site plan notes have been updated by memo from the applicant's consultant, which show the plan provides 0.404 acres of open space. This number includes 0.238 acres of active and 0.166 acres of passive. The active is basically mostly in the pocket park that's being proposed, and I'm sure they'll talk about that. That pocket park is accessed through a walk that runs through the adjacent parcel, and it's recommended an access easement be acquired, or that the walk be shifted to the other side of the refuse enclosure so they don't have to get that access. It also would provide a much easier walk across from where the existing walk in the proposed development is located. Site lining does not spill over into the adjacent residential parcels and is a maximum of 20 feet in height. Poles are located 85 feet from the site boundary. All fixtures appear to be sharp cut off and provide house side shields, which is all what we typically require. Development is extensively landscaped with substantial buffer along the abutting residential properties. Parking lot buffering and interior landscape are adequately provided, It's recommended that the street trees proposed along Lester Way within the select locations of the parking lot be full canopy. A lot of these are what they're calling fastigiate or upright species. We would rather see more full canopy so that you get more shade. The planting schedule has been revised. We've looked at it internally. We didn't, again, being consistent between Z-Vault and this project, we didn't provide that to you because it was submitted afterwards. So, but we did have time to look at that, and we find no objection with the selected species. Any proposed installation of removal of trees from the state highway requires MDOT approval. And I should caveat that. They actually look to DNR to do all the reviews. Forest Conservation Plan calculates, indicate 0.234 acres of afforestation is required. Let's see, the applicant has provided a subdivision plat addressing the consolidation of parcels 500 and 498. That's the famous Lester Way parcels. And conveying a portion of the property to the town of Bel Air for road improvement right-of-way. Right now, Lester Way has deficient right-of-way for their existing road. The property conveyance is required to, again, widen Lester Way and provides area for public sidewalk. This plat also provides for an easement between parcel 498 and 497 to address construction of the proposed building across existing property lines to abut the building at 130 North Bond. This cross easement agreement cannot be voided or altered without written approval from the town, meaning if they're going to cross over a property line to abut an adjacent building, the town has to be part of that agreement, and they have to enter into that agreement between the two parcels. In addition, there's an existing drainage utility easement. It's located within what appears to be a gravel access road to parcel 491. This conflicts with the proposed improvements and needs to be extinguished. Okay, I know I took a long time on that, but that's what I've got. I've got some other recommendations based on supplemental comments from various agencies. I can talk about that when you enter into your deliberations.
All right.
I had a question before the applicant gets started. Kevin, the figures on page 6 of the staff report for square footage don't jive with what's on the applicant's site plan. Is there a reason for that?
What, that's something I'll have the applicant answer. We ended up taking a look at the acreage, and they gave, and we were confused by it. So we had them create a summary of that. I think what ended up happening, and again, I'll let them talk about that, is that they included acreage that they were conveying to the town. We don't require in the total project acreage, if somebody conveys property to the town for roadway improvement, we're not gonna ding them on that additional acreage being provided for active open space or anything else.
Yeah, I'm talking about the building itself, the square footage for retail service, square footage for office. For instance, you've got, in the staff report, it says 8,600 square feet for office, but on their site plan, it has 9,440 square foot for the 5th floor mixed use.
I went by the traffic concepts memo, so that'll have to get clarified.
Maybe the applicant can explain that one?
I'm not, who's the best
That's-
person?
That's gonna impact the parking requirement, won't it?
No, actually, whether it's office or retail, it's all calculated on 3.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. It's a mixed use calculation.
But if the square footage is larger than what you've got in the staff report, doesn't the...
If the total square footage is larger than what we have in the staff report, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, it is, well, we'll see which number is accurate.
We'll get there. For the record, Bradley R. Stover, Robinson and Stover, 124 North Main Street. I'm an attorney here in town, longtime Bel Air resident. Happy to be here tonight to present the standard on bond to you, Planning Commission. With me tonight is Mr. Wayne Goddard of the developer, Bel Air Development Partners. There's also a handful of folks here from that team. If you want to raise your hands, Bel Air Development Partners. Yep, only one did, but okay. Also with me tonight's Amy DePietro, professional engineer with Morris and Ritchie Associates, Nestor Zabala, an architect with Curry Architects, and Mark Keeley, the traffic expert from Traffic Concepts. As Mr. Small mentioned, we're here tonight seeking site plan, landscaping plan, subdivision plan approval, as well as mixed use and outdoor approval for this project. This project did, in fact, go before the Board of Appeals. We had a series of hearings last year, and on October 17th of 2023, the board granted several facets of relief relevant to tonight, a relief from the front yard setback in the B3A district, as well as relief from the drive aisle requirements in the B3A district that Mr. Small just mentioned. Tonight, through my panel over here, we intend to address the plans themselves, the performance and code standards for the mixed-use development and the outdoor dining, as well as the consistency with the master plan. We certainly will also address those items Mr. Small just noted. Also in his staff report, pay particular attention to the shared parking, the setback for commercial parking to an adjacent use, and the architecture at 130 North Bond. With that, I would open it up to Mr. Goddard, who will give a brief overview, and then turn it over to Ms. DePietro, Mr. Keeley, Mr. Zabala, to, among other things, answer Mr. Powell's question.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission, as well as members of the community. Thank you all for coming here tonight. It's very encouraging to see so many faces. We have all of our partners here, and we have our partners' wives. Yes, you can. Those are not. That's. So you can't, yeah, I'm not Mr. Klein or Mr. Hopkins. This is truly an exciting project.
Before you go further, just name and address for the
Oh,
record.
sorry
please.
about that. Wayne Goddard, 128 North Bond Street. This is truly an exciting project, and one that we think is going to significantly impact the community, because this is a project that has been requested by the town and Harford County for approximately 10 years now. A little bit of background on me. I was on the Bel Air Downtown Alliance several years ago, and unlike some people, I actually read all of the reports that the town paid good money to commission. I read the real estate report from 2016. I read the comprehensive report from 2022. I read the business report from 2023, and I was interviewed by one of the consultants in the economic development report of 2023. So when I was reading the 2016 real estate study done by Camion and Associates several years ago, I saw an image on page 16 of that report, which had a caption under it that says, "A mixed-use building suitable for Bond Street." So that triggered something in my mind to say, wow, that's a beautiful building, but nothing like that exists in Harford County or Bel Air right now. It seems surprising to me that that's what the town would think is desirable, because I agree, it's very desirable. But where could you build it? So I kind of put it in the back of my mind, and then I continued to read the report, and there was a quote in the report that I'd like to read into the record because I think it is so pertinent. This is at page 19, and this is a key finding of the 2016 real estate study, which was incorporated by reference into the 2022 comprehensive plan. The key finding read as follows: market conditions are ripe for market rate development downtown. Nationally, there has been a significant shift in housing preferences toward downtown, walkable, mixed-use areas, especially amongst young professionals and empty nesters. These two population groups are willing to pay to live near these amenities and typically demand high-end residential units. The town, however, lacks significant high-end residential multifamily development that have the desired modern amenities. Bel Air's downtown could support a substantial number of high-end residential units with demand coming from empty nesters looking to transition away from a single-family home and young professionals, especially medical professionals working locally. Additionally, the analysis showed that a relatively large portion of jobs in the town are filled by those commuting into the town. These commuters may represent a secondary source of demand for new housing downtown if they prefer modern apartments with walkability to the proximity to their work. What a great idea. I completely agreed with it. So with the key finding in mind, and then the sample rendering, the standard and bond was conceived in my mind. However, development is a very expensive process, and certainly way beyond my means. I'm not a developer, I'm a local small businessman. I own the Goddard companies. So I started talking about this project with some of my friends and business partners, all of whom are residents of Bel Air. Some of whom, my wife and my partner's wives are all in the front row. My partner Jason, my partner Damon, my partner Dave. We're local Bel Air people. We're school teachers, we're builders, we're contractors. We build your restaurants. You know, I own a title company, in addition to many other things. My dad's here. I'm an empty nester myself, just by a few weeks. Our kids are grown up. Damon's kids are grown up. Dave's kids are grown up. And really what concerned all of us when we sat around and talked, because we've been friends for probably 20 years, is how come our kids don't want to come back to Bel Air? How come they want to live in downtown Baltimore? How come they want to live in Greenville, South Carolina? How come they want to live in other places? You know why? Because there's nothing like that to come back to live in. So this report really hit home with us, because here we are, we're living a key finding that was made in 2016, is that young professionals want to live in the downtown corridor, particularly medical professionals. Now, what do we see? We see the hospital expanding, which is amazing, because that brings young professionals. We see the Aberdeen Proving Ground. There's only 10% of the people at Aberdeen Proving Ground are commissioned military people. All the rest are civilians, and most of them have and most of the higher end jobs have PhDs. I'm a member of the Economic Development Advisory Board for Harford County as well. I was appointed by County Executive Castley. And one of the benefits of being on that board is I get to interact with leaders at the hospital, leaders over at the Aberdeen Proving Ground, leaders in business, leaders in insurance companies. And one of the key problems that they express is when they try to recruit someone to come to the town of Bel Air, they show them an image that looks like that, but then they sell them an apartment that is way different than that, that is not walkable, that is not a mixed use, that is not in Bel Air. There's nothing like this in Bel Air. In fact, there's nothing like this in Harford County, but there's nothing like this in Bel Air. So the standard on bond was conceived because my business partners, who are my friends, believed in it. And it continued to grow because our wives supported it and allowed us to put our finances at risk to do a project like this, which is going to cost about $20 million. We are incredibly invested in this community because I believe in this town, and I believe in this plan, and I believe that if we can do this, this can be something that other developers who have the heart that we have will believe in and will pick up the mantle, because frankly, we're running out of money. And once we do this project, we're going to have to reload. But I think that if we show that it can be done, it can be done. So let's talk about how this ties into the 2022 Town of Bel Air Comprehensive Zoning Plan. Chapter 7, entitled Housing Analysis, at page 72, incorporates by reference the key findings in the 2016 housing plan that I just talked about. So there's a desire and a need for mixed-use, high-density luxury rental dwellings targeted at young professionals and empty nesters. So what does that mean? The term luxury apartment is thrown about, you know, with very vague definitions. So I'll tell you what these apartments are going to look like. The standard on bond dwellings will be priced at $2,000 per month for a one bedroom and $3,000 a month for a two bedroom. The commercial space will be leased at $32 a square foot triple net and is expected to be and will be the best in class. My office will be there. Other professionals, perhaps some of my partners' offices will be there. This will bring great jobs to the town of Bel Air. We have a restaurant that will be locally owned with chef-prepared cuisine, catering to a more mature and affluent demographic, which will serve dinner, lunch, and brunch on the weekends. There will be retail in the first level that is high-end or similar services such as a physical therapist or other profession like that. The elements that we will bring to this project will significantly increase the economic base and, more importantly, the median household income in the town of Bel Air. When I read the economic study, I was shocked to see that the average household income in the town of Bel Air was about $65,000 to $70,000 a year, whereas the average household income immediately outside the town of Bel Air, but in the Bel Air zip code, was nearly twice that much. In order to have a vibrant downtown, you need to have a mix of economic strata and socioeconomic strata. And that's what we intend and hope to introduce. Number two in the comprehensive zoning plan of 2022 was the identification of priority areas of development. Priority 2 was the Bond Street and downtown corridor. And I'd like to quote a pertinent section of that. Bond Street and associated interconnecting streets offer opportunities for development and changes in use where structures and underutilized properties can be replaced or renovated for more intensive uses that reflect the higher property values in that area. So with this in mind, I set about, with my real estate agent, to find a property that we could build this project. And we were fortunate enough that the church was selling because they were growing and that Mrs. Peverly wanted to sell her parcel, and everything just came together. The comprehensive plan of 2022 also speaks to economic development on page 83. I am committed to bringing the headquarters of the Goddard companies to Harford County by 2026. With that commitment, we will bring 12 to 15 high-paying jobs, starting at about $90,000 and going all the way up to several $100,000 a year into the downtown corridor. I am encouraging all of my employees as they begin to buy homes in Harford County, because this is where our headquarters are going to be. We are jettisoning some of our real estate holdings in other areas so that we can focus on buying property in downtown Bel Air to demonstrate our commitment of build one, save one. The comprehensive plan at chapter 10, growth, page 98, says the town desires, after speaking to all the constituents, to have big town vibrancy and small town charm. Well, that's big time vibrancy, and that is small town charm. I bought this building last year on 108 North Bond because I've always admired it, and I hated the fact that when Mr. Plum started it, he never finished it appropriately with the appropriate siding and the appropriate windows. So just a few months ago, we spent $100,000 replacing all the windows, all the siding, all the roof, all the gutters, and everything. And we put a historic covenant against it to save it so they could never be knocked down. And we received tax credits and we received benefits and assistance from the organizations within the town. That is small town charm combined with big time vibrancy. We have contracted to purchase 30 East Broadway, which is the Baker House #2, right next to the Episcopal Church, across the street from Klein's, next to the vacant lot where the Harford Shabbat is. It is our intention to inject nearly $500,000 into that project to bring the Baker House back to the historically relevant structure that it was when it was inventoried back in 1971. The apartments there are substandard apartments located in a premium location. That's our buy one, save one. We have other projects on the radar as well. So I'm fully committed to the big town vibrancy and the small town charm. The thing that we would like to emphasize is, although this process has been frustrating, with every input and community meeting. We got to meet our neighbors on Wallace Street. I think Renee Coon's here. We listened to her at the Board of Appeals, and her testimony was so powerful, along with some other members of the community that lived on the street behind her, where they expressed concern about the traffic. And Ms. Coon expressed concern that she was going to be living in the shadow of the buildings that we built. And when we ran some aerial renderings on those buildings to see what would happen, she was right. When we looked at the parking adequacy of our two-building concept, I said to my partners, I said, these people are correct. I said, I don't want to do this to our town. So the decision that we made was to completely eliminate the second building, dropping the density in half. There was some concern about having too many apartments. You know, I considered that, and we reduced the number of apartments. The process, you know, we've revised this plan 4 times. We've traveled to Greenville, South Carolina to receive architectural inspiration, which is what this building came from. We've completely redesigned the building. We've completely redesigned the concept. And although it was a costly endeavor, it was a worthwhile endeavor, because with every iteration of this building, it got better and better. And with every iteration of the building, when we would drop it down into the renderings, which you're going to see later on this evening, it became more and more a part of the town of Bel Air. And lastly, and the architect's going to speak about this more, is we really wanted to pull in the town of Bel Air, the architecture, the history, the feel of it. So we actually utilized the brick color and the mortar color of some of the more iconic downtown brick buildings, which we have a sample that my partner Jason's going to show later on. You know, we're local people. We're not out-of-town developers. We're not here to destroy the town. We're here to prove to other people that the visions set forth in the comprehensive plan of 2016 and 2021 are not just visions. They're not just dreams. They can realistically be brought to market successfully. Thank you.
Amy?
Thank you. Mr. Stover, would you mind pulling up the next slide?
Would you give us your name and address, please?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Amy DePietro, 3445A Box Hill Corporate Center Drive, Abingdon, Maryland, 21009. Again, my name is Amy DePietro. I'm with Morrison Ritchie Associates. We are the civil consultants for this project. Excuse me. Before you see a rendered version of the site plan that was submitted. The project is located at the northwest corner of North Bond and Leicester. North Bond is on the right-hand side of the screen. Leicester is along the bottom of your screen, and then Wallace is over to the left of your screen. The project consists of 3 individual parcels, parcel 498, parcel 497, and parcel 500, totaling 1.562 acres. Then we are also proposing a right-of-way dedication of 0.055 acres to the town of Bel Air, and a 0.167 acre pocket park, making our net tract area 1.674 acres. We are also proposing to consolidate parcels 500 and 498, and a consolidation plat has been submitted. We are aware of the town's comment regarding extinguishing the existing drainage and utility easement that bisects the property. Unfortunately, this easement is for a storm drain conveyance from Hartford Mutual to the system in Leicester Way and cannot be extinguished. Our design work will work around this existing conveyance. As stated earlier, the properties are zoned B3A, or General Business Gateway, and the existing uses are for 128 North Bond, the Church of the Reconciliation, and 130 North Bond, it's existing 2-story office and retail building. The property on Leicester Way, also known as the Peverly property, is vacant. As previously stated, we are proposing a 5-story mixed-use building, including the following: a basement of 4,200 square feet of mechanical and storage space.
The first floor will include a 7,000 square foot mixed-use center, inclusive of a 2,440 square foot lobby and outdoor seating area. The second through fourth floors include 30 multifamily units, 15 one-bedroom units, and 15 two-bedroom units. And then the fifth floor, though listed at 9,440 square feet on the site plan, Mr. Powell, that's the actual dimensions of the building. The square footage of the use is 8,000 square feet, so that is something that we need to clean up and make more clear on our site plan, because there's elevators and some common spaces that are not going to be used for the use. So that's the discrepancy that you noticed on the plan. The proposed building is shown on the site plan is the one that on the southern portion, the darker orange, and then the existing building, 130 North Bond, is the one that's to the north side, which is like the lighter tan color. We're proposing 3 full movement accesses for the project. We will be retaining the current existing full movement access off of North Bond into 130, and then 2 new reconstructed full movement accesses onto Lester Way. There's currently 3 there, so we are reducing the number of accesses by 1. We are proposing connections to the town's sewer system, specifically to the 8-inch sewer main that's located in Lester Way, and to Maryland American's water system, the 8-inch water main that is located in the North Bond right-of-way. We have submitted a concept stormwater management plan that has been approved for the project and are proposing a combination of microbiome retention and pervious pavement to meet our stormwater management requirements. As previously mentioned, there is a centralized refuse collection area. It's at the very north part of the development, directly above the first entrance off of Lester. In addition, there's a common loading space that's centralized. It'll be just to the left of the existing building that can be used for both buildings. And we have prepared turning templates that show that the site has proper circulation, geometry, and access for the necessary vehicle types to serve the project, inclusive of EMS vehicles, trucks, and school buses. Open space, we are required 15% of the net tract area, and we are exceeding that requirement. We are also required to provide active open space, a minimum of 40%, and then plus an additional 200 square feet per unit. That is provided in the Pocket Park that there's a long-term lease on. It's the dark burnt orange color to the top of the page. That's a 0.167 acre Pocket Park, which will be accessible via a proposed sidewalk. We appreciate the town's comment regarding an access easement, and that has been added to our site plan. If you wouldn't mind jumping down 2 sheets, please. One more.
Good to go.
Okay, thank you. This is our landscape plan. The landscape plan exceeds the town's planting requirements, and we are in receipt of the town's comments requesting specifics regarding the species. That updated drawing was submitted, and thank you for getting around to reviewing that so quickly. We appreciate it. The new plan is what appears on the screen before you. So we are proposing 37 canopy trees and 164 shrubs of varying species. In regards to the existing trees that are located in the state highway right-of-way, we are planning to keep those in place, those mature trees. There are no existing natural resources on the site, so no floodplains, wetlands, critical area. However, the site does generate an afforestation requirement of 0.234 acres, which we intend to meet via fee and lieu. We also appreciate the town's inclusion of the 3-foot parking setback along Hartford Mutual's property line. While every effort has been made to comply with the town's requirements, implementing that 3-foot setback in this case would create vehicular circulation issues, and we are seeking relief from this requirement. Regarding the already issued variances, and our interpretation is that the plan has not substantially changed as what was submitted from the Board of Appeals. Though one building was removed, the project has changed in scale but not in spirit. 128 North Bond has not changed as it relates to the setback variance and its location on the plan. And furthermore, the existing drive aisle on 130 North Bond has not changed. The project generates a parking requirement of 144 spaces. The mixed use is calculated at 3.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. We are required 1.5 parking spaces for the one-bedroom apartments and 2 parking spaces for the two-bedroom apartments. Our plan proposes 128 parking spaces, 3 of which are ADA spaces and 2 van accessible spaces. The plan includes 2 takeout spaces, which count as double. We have allocated 15 spaces for the one-bedroom apartments, 30 spaces for the two-bedroom units, and then 79 spaces that would be shared parking. Please note that as submitted, the site plan legend and graphic conflicts for the shared parking tabulation. The takeout spaces located at the 128 North Bond building should have been labeled separately from the other 6 spaces in that row. 79 shared parking spaces is the correct number. The site plan has been updated accordingly. It should be noted that reserved parking for the multifamily units and office will be marked and signed accordingly. We are requesting relief from the Planning Commission for use of the tandem shared parking to satisfy our parking requirements. I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. Mark Keeley, who is going to go through his shared parking analysis for you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Keeley. I'm a project manager at Traffic Concepts. My address is 7525 Connolly Drive, Suite B, Hanover, Maryland, 21076. So we conducted a parking study, and as Amy said, the required number of parking spaces on site is 144, and we're providing 128 spaces. In order to determine or prove the shared use concept, we looked at the ITE parking manual. And specifically, we looked at the percent of parking demand for different uses. So if the residential parking spaces were the allocated spaces for residents remained at 100%, the shared parking spaces would be the commercial uses. So for example, according to the IT parking manual, from midnight to 8 a.m., for example, the residential would be 100, the restaurant would be 64 because, theoretically, there would be people going to a restaurant in the morning for coffee or donuts or whatever. So the restaurant, according to ITE, would be 64%. Retail would be much less. It's 19%. Office at 8 o'clock in the morning, 22%. So in that case, there would be 120 occupied spaces. So I looked at the percent demand from midnight all the way through the day to midnight. Evening time, 6 p.m. to midnight. Again, residential apartments would be fully occupied 100%. In the evening, as expected, the restaurant would be 95%. Retail would start, typically they close at 9, so it's 55%. And office was 65%. So in that case, again, it was 120 occupied spaces. So this letter, I think Mr. Small indicated, it was January 18th of this year. It was presented that, again, it's based on ITE, trip generation manual data, and shows that the shared parking can accommodate this use with 128 spaces. And again, this is typical of most shared use projects in an urban area, where instead of creating, you know, additional impervious surface, it does make sense to use a shared parking concept. So, you know, as different uses, as I explained, have different demand time periods, there's going to be spaces that are going to be not occupied. So it makes sense that, you know, this different uses could share parking.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I understand the concept. Let's talk about the mechanics. So if you have a person that's in an apartment that has one car, then you have a person in a two-bedroom that has two cars. How's the shared mechanics going to work for, let's say, two one-bedroom apartments with two cars, one car each? Are they backing together, or do they actually have their own parking spot so they don't have to worry about sharing a spot with somebody else, that if they're parked in the back, they got to find the person parked in front?
Yep, Mr. Coach, you must be following my outline because Mr. Goddard is going to address that next.
Okay.
It says, Wayne, explain how it will work. I will explain how it will work now. So the way that's going to work, to answer your question, is this idea was borrowed from my parents' condominium. They live in McPhail Woods Crossing. So they have two tandem parking spots where my mom and dad park bumper to bumper. They coordinate with each other. But your question is, with respect to the one-bedroom?
Well, assuming a one-bedroom has one car, and the guy next door, the gal next door has their own car, how does that work so that I'm not coming out at midnight to move my car because somebody needs to get up and go to work at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Well, the majority of the tandems will be assigned to the office and the retail, as well as the two bedrooms. With respect to having basically strangers determining, you know, like your scenario, hey, I got to go to work at midnight. Can you move your car because I'm parked in? We don't anticipate that that's going to happen because we have enough single spots, if you will, to make that happen. The way that the tandem parking is going to work on the commercial uses is we're going to give it, first of all, I'm preparing all the leases, and the Goddard Companies also manages this property and will be on site. So commercial hang tags will be provided for each employee that parks on site. The leases will allocate, there'll be a grid in their lease as an exhibit that will show, let's say we number the spots 1 through 10, A, B, A, B, A, B, or something like that. So each tenant space will have them assigned. So each employee will know where to park. This concept, in addition to that, the site will be monitored by our management team, because this property has on-site management, from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. We know that this concept works because we've used it in other projects that we manage in Towson and in Baltimore City, where parking's at a premium. And like I said, my company's going to be there. There's only two people at my company that frequently go in and out during the day. I'm one of them, and then we have a runner that goes in and out and picks things up from the courthouse or wherever else we have to go. If you were to go to my parking lot on any given day, you would see the same people parking in the same spots for 8 hours because their jobs require them to basically be there. The only time that you're ever going to really ever see anybody leave, in my instance, would be to go to lunch because we don't work close enough to a eating establishment.
Well, you have one on the first floor, so that won't be a problem now.
Well, so not only will that not be a problem, but it is our expectation that we will encourage more walkability by making it somewhat more inconvenient to move the car than it is to walk downstairs. And the vendor with whom we're negotiating a lease for the food is prepared to have what they call a quick grab option where there'll be 4 or 5 selections available, a sandwich, a soup, maybe something you heat up. So it's going to really be focused on trying to stay on the grounds and take that food, go over to the pocket park, walk over to the grocery store, go to, whatever errands you might have to run. But it's going to be really a focus on not driving as much and not going in and out as much. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're moving our company up here, is because I currently have an hour and 45 minute on a good day round trip commute to Towson, and it's wasteful. And and when we look at our economic studies, we see that too many people are leaving Harford County to go to work. So the way it's going to work is it's going to be very well organized, and it's going to be controlled and monitored. And I've seen it work in retail. I know I worked at a retail store when I was in high school, and we were required to park in the least desirable spaces at the back of the lot, and we were required to stack our cars as well based upon our work schedules. And I anticipate that's going to be the same with a restaurant, for example. When you come on your shift as a server, you're not supposed to be going in and out in your car. I mean, you're there, you're working there, you're serving. So it would be very easy to coordinate just about every kind of commercial use, other than a delivery service, which we're not going to have there. So all of the office uses are going to be professional office uses where the people are going to be in the office. And all of the retail uses are going to be retail uses where people are going to have to come to the venue, work their assigned shift, and then leave. So it's going to be we think it's going to be quite workable for these tandem parking spots.
Again, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think what your thought process sounds reasonably sound. I'm more concerned about once the resident gets in, other than the management company complaining they end up complaining to the town that they can't get out, or we can't get around. So I'm looking to circumvent the resident aspect of things more so than the commercial. There's been a couple places in town where the commercial, Brown and Brown used to have stacking when they were over there off of 22 as you're coming in. So I understand how it works, and I understand from a commercial standpoint. But I'm more interested in the residential aspect of things, to make sure that, the residents that you have in there have easy access to get in and get out of their parking spaces. That's all.
If I could address that a little further, I forgot my pen light, so I apologize, but there's 15.
I'm sorry, just a moment. We need her to repeat her name and address? Are you okay? All right, sorry.
Yeah, just the name.
No problem.
Just the name. Okay.
Amy DePietro. The 15 spaces that are located to the left across the drive aisle from the proposed building, Mr. Stover, I don't know if you can, the 15 spaces there. Those, over to the right. Yeah, those 15 spaces are proposed to be dedicated for the one-bedroom apartments, so they will not be tandem. Then directly opposite those, there's 30 tandem spaces, back over to the right a little bit, the ones that are shaded in. Those will be the tandem spaces associated with the 2-bedroom apartments. So, husband, wife, or whoever's.
Yeah, I got it.
Each unit will be specifically assigned those 2 spaces back to back.
Okay.
Does that?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I understand, concept-wise, it was great. I was just more concerned about the mechanics, not so much for the commercial or the retail folks, but more so for the residential people that you anticipate being in your apartments.
Have we adequately addressed your question, Mr. Coates? And there, of course, there'll be signage as well.
Right.
And there'll be signage on the asphalt, and there will also be mounted signs as well.
Just to complicate it a little bit more, though, if you have a 2-bedroom apartment, you could have husband and wife with vehicles plus a teenage child or whatever. We were talking about 3 then. Have you explored at all other possible parking sites?
Well, we explored a parking arrangement with Hartford Mutual, but because of their anticipated parking needs as they go back into full in-person work, that was not feasible. The only other feasible option would be to possibly lease some spots over on Lee Street, which we're certainly not opposed to, but we believe that the parking, based upon the parking studies, will be adequate, and we know that the tandem parking works in commercial, and we've seen it work in the residential as well. And, you know, and the good thing about sort of, you read these reports and then there's sort of like a lot of numbers and a lot of figures, but then you sit and look out your window, like my parking lot in Towson has 100 spots. It's never been full, and you look at certain times of the day, like Mark said, before 8 o'clock, it's completely empty. From 9 to about 3:30, 4 o'clock, it's the fullest it gets. And then in the evening, when there's certain services that are occurring, it becomes less full. It just seems like just sort of the rotation of utilization of parking based upon different times, that the parking is adequate, even though it may not seem that way. It does appear to be that way.
I had a quick question, if you guys,
Yes,
with the
please.
parking issue. I know this is an evidentiary hearing, so I'm going to try not to sound like a lawyer. Mark, you addressed the peak hours in your report, and that all looks fine concerning the code. But I did notice that there is a lack of any analysis concerning the stacking of parking spaces under the code. According to the code, the stacking of parking spaces may be approved in certain circumstances by the Planning Commission if the applicant can demonstrate that there will be no adverse impact on the use and circulation pattern of the parking area. So given that the Planning Commission needs to make this type of finding of fact, I just wanted to get your opinion as to whether that is your professional opinion that it would have no adverse impact on the use and circulation pattern of the parking area for the tandem parking.
You're following my outline too, because that was my next.
I saw a hole. I got you.
So, Mark Healy, Traffic Concepts. Based on my knowledge of other developments that have stacked parking, I would say that there would be no adverse impact to this development and to surrounding developments in terms of parking. As we heard, the stacked parking would be organized by the management on site, and would be used primarily by the commercial uses. So I think we heard the arrangement that would control that stacked parking, and that the residential uses have their own parking spaces.
Okay, and you agree that it wouldn't adversely impact the circulation pattern of the parking area on site, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry, no further questions.
No, you're welcome. Were there any other questions before we move on the stacked parking issue?
Just wanted to know, maybe it's here somewhere, but I can't find it. How many of these parking spaces are stacked?
60.
Those and 30. Okay. So it was just, no other place around here is it going to be stacked, just in those two areas to the left?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Petrie, if you want to briefly address the mixed-use and outdoor dining standards?
Yep. As far as the mixed-use center performance standards, applicant shall provide unified arrangement of buildings, so on and so forth. Each element on this plan, buildings, parking, circulation, amenities, was carefully evaluated and selected to optimize the experience of the resident and the residents and commercial tenants. Architecture, site lighting, signage, site design shall be harmonious with the character of the neighborhood. The project team has visited the site in downtown Bel Air on numerous occasions to gain inspiration for the project. Specifically, the developers are local community members who are intimately familiar with the local architecture and design elements, and the building design was heavily influenced by the town's comprehensive plan examples. The next standard is regarding internal circulation. We circulation is very important for any urban project. We have gone through great efforts to obtain access to the adjacent property at 130 North Pond that'll give us additional full movement access, and then the two accesses onto Leicester as well. So we have great circulation within the site, and we've also done truck turning templates that prove that the site can be accessed by all of the different vehicle types needed to come onto the property. Item D is regarding safe pedestrian movement. We've proposed pedestrian facilities along the road frontages and through the proposed parking area, providing easy access to the buildings and connections with the Pocket Park in downtown Bel Air. The next item is regarding the loading area. We are providing a concrete loading area at the rear of 130 North Bond that'll be utilized for both buildings. And then we have the trash area that is located north of the first entrance of Leicester that will be used by both buildings. The proposed signage submitted with the plan, we included architectural renderings of the proposed signage. Unfortunately, until commercial tenants are identified, we will not know what their signage will look like, but that will come in for a separate sign permit application. Directional and informational signs. We have provided pedestrian scale lighting and signage to direct residents and visitors. Item H is regarding on-site security. Our clients are proposing cameras, alarm systems, and secured keyless entrance into the buildings. Traffic study has been prepared and submitted to the town for review. And then the item J is regarding the development agreement. The owners have no objection to entering into that agreement and look forward to working with the town attorney to develop it. Performance standards for outdoor dining, bar, or service. The first one addresses amplified music or a public address system not permitted after 9 p.m. We are not proposing to do so. Live entertainment, recreational games are not permitted after 9 p.m. Again, not proposing to do so. The outdoor bar dining, our operations must adhere to the requirements. Again, everything we're proposing is within the requirements. The exterior area is limited to 75% of the seats that are permitted inside. We are proposing 116 seats inside and 81 outside, which is less than the 75%. And then bar service is the final item. We are not proposing outdoor bar service.
Just a couple of clarifications, if I may.
Please.
When you're talking about no outdoor bars, there's not going to be any outdoor physical bar, but will there be alcohol served outdoors?
We assume so.
Yeah, I assume with the high end, you're probably going to do that. Yeah. And then the connection to me from this development to the Pocket Park is somewhat awkward. You have to kind of go up and around the trash enclosure. Any thought given to flipping the that access to the other side of the trash enclosure?
I just quickly drew it up here, and I think it could work without losing any parking spaces. My only concern is the artist's vision of the Pocket Park was to be very linear with some of the displays and things that they're planning. It's kind of supposed to tell a story. So that would, cut off the end part of that Pocket Park experience. But, if that's something specific that the town's very concerned about, I don't have a problem from an engineering perspective of doing that.
Just a question.
Mr. Zabala, you've been very patient.
Thank you.
So we will turn to the architect, Mr. Nestor Zabala from Curry Architects.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nestor Zabala with Curry Architects, 1 North Haven Street, Baltimore, Maryland.
Just a little bit louder, please, for the elderly.
Absolutely, yes. Let me move this microphone closer. Okay. Do I need to repeat that?
You're
Okay.
good. Go
Thank
ahead.
you very much. Appreciate your patience. I get the fun part, and I'd like
You
to
do.
walk everyone through the images of the standard on bond. For ease of explanation, if I may, I would like to refer to, on the site plan, what is page up as north. That is truly northeast, and page down is south, naturally east and west. So if everyone would allow, this would be east-facing. This is facing Bond Street. You can see the main entry there highlighted with the, oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Sir.
Yes,
You're actually addressing the planning commission, so we can see these monitors.
Oh.
We can't see behind us.
that is a good
Unfortunately, it
point.
doesn't work on the monitors.
It's,
Doesn't work on the monitors,
there
okay.
you go.
You can try.
Absolutely.
Maybe somebody can be a.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Right.
Yes. Oh, my goodness, it is not going to work on the monitor.
You're getting closer. You're on the wall. Brad might be able to help you with a pointer.
Right. We will coordinate, Brad, if that's okay with you. I'm just pointing, Brad, at the entry, which you can see. There we go. Generally in the center of the building, obviously marked with 128 for the address. And I wanted to point out that we were very, very deliberate, the team, in the design, in that you'll see in just a moment that each view was very important to us, so much so that we had it rendered in an evening shot as well, because as everyone knows, throughout the day, bright sunny day, and as the sun sets, the building takes on a different character and a different life. The same building, naturally, but because of the vibrancy that you might be able to experience with the residential use, the office use, the restaurant use, and hopefully we'll know some of the mercantile retail uses. The life of the building happens quite often at the street level, and we think it brings in energy throughout the day. So we are very deliberate to showcase the building during the day, and you'll see this view here facing east. If I could have the next slide. And we think the energy as, there we go. This is the same view in the evening. As dusk is arriving, you can see how it really lends itself to an energetic vibe to the street. We think the architecture complements this. Good proportions and the use of materials in a very deliberate way is timeless. There's no substitute for a good adjacency of materials, contrast of colors, and proportions most especially. And if one of our partners could begin to, I'm about to talk about the brick. We had some larger scale samples of the brick that is physically going to be used in the mortar. This is a true representation. We wanted to see what it was going to look like in real life. The board is quite heavy, so.
Getting your workout.
Yeah, it's a Glengarry Couchoir brick that we've fallen in love with. This board, which is much lighter, does, and if you'd like, you can pass that around. That shows the actual materials, more of the texture and less of the texture, but more of the finish colors and the adjacencies that we thought were very important. The brick up against glass, obviously, a bit of metal for the railings and the canopies at the street level, I think work very, very well together. Next slide, please. This is what we'll refer to as the south elevation along Leicester Way. And so this corner takes you, you're looking at what you would see as if you were to turn onto Leicester Way. You can see the delineation of the apartment levels are wrapped in the white material. The brick serves as a nice backdrop, a contrast to the entire composition. Next slide, please. And here is the same view. I think it's just remarkable how the sun and how the light throughout the day changes, and as I mentioned earlier, the life that begins to occur during different parts of the day. You are looking at what would be, we're hopeful, the restaurant terrace level, the patio, facing Leicester Way. Next slide, please. And this is what we'll call the west
Sir,
elevation.
I don't want to get ahead of anything, but
Sure,
I'm
absolutely.
looking at all these renderings and everything, and I see a lot of trees in the windows. Is that a reflection? Or is
It is a reflection,
so what
but
kind of
it
windows
is,
are we going to have here? Are they going to be clear?
I can answer that.
Sure,
The-
thank you,
The
Wayne.
windows will be used, will be an Anderson 400 or a similar product to that. Unfortunately, when you do the rendering, there's multiple hands that stir the pot. So I agree, it looks like it's mirrored glass. It's absolutely not mirrored glass. It's really not even tinted glass. It might have a UV inhibitor inside of it, but it's clear glass.
Okay.
So I noticed that myself, that you're reflecting
Yeah,
off the
that's
trees.
what I was concerned about.
Or else there's a lot of vegetation growing inside the building, which
That's right.
that's not happening.
Right, that's right.
Which, that's not gonna be allowed either, by the way. But no, those are clear glass. They're, a renderer is an artist. They took a little artistic license, but
Okay.
it's gonna be straight through. It's not mirrored at all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. You had me at trees growing inside the building. Mirrored glass, right. But again, the strong delineation of what would be the entrance to the building. This is the residential entrance. Naturally, the restaurant and the retail mercantile spaces would have their own entrances. Next slide, please. This is the same view. Again, this is a nighttime view of, naturally, you're in the parking lot. I think it's, again, very striking what good placement of lights, shadows can play on the building. And I'm biased, but I think it's pretty striking. We did ask the renderer to use the actual light fixtures, light patterns, dispersions, to give as accurate as possible image of the building that we possibly could view. And the team adjusted it internally to make sure it is as beautiful and proportional as possible. So what you're seeing is a very deliberate and is quite frankly, a very accurate representation of what is going to be built. Next slide, please. Could you go one back?
Sorry,
Yeah.
heavy finger.
Right. So, to explain what we're looking at, this lower portion is 130. Brad, can you just show on the, yes, there we go, thank you. This is the existing building to the north. It's ghosted out just a bit, just so you could at least see and recognize the architecture of that building. And behind that is our building. Because of the way it is juxtaposed to the building in front of it, it's a little bit more flat and does not have the ins and outs of the building that the other facades have. Next slide, please. But we paid no less attention to how you would see this building, the lighting, very exacting. What we wanted to highlight the cornice work, because this is the view you will see. You are coming down Bond, as everyone knows, is one way. But we want it to be as equally as special as all the other buildings. So we did not spend any less time or designing this, especially with the lights and so forth. All right, next slide, please. Oh, yes, this is where I believe Mr. Goddard will, we're getting into the aerial drone renderings, which have accurate placement on the building site.
Can I ask you about the mechanical equipment? I don't see anything up there. It's in the basement.
Yes, thank you for your question. There naturally will be mechanical equipment up there. There will be screening for the equipment. Once we have the building design on the technical aspect is much more fully fleshed out, we will get the sizes from the engineer, the volumes and so forth, and optimally place it so that, and once we do the line of sight studies, naturally you would want it more central. We would never place it up against the perimeter of the parapet. But there may be trees living and growing inside the building as part of the rendering. Those sort of things, the mechanical units did not appear in the rendering. We just don't know the sizes and the exact placement of the units.
But it will be screened.
There will absolutely be screening, no doubt about that. Screening, sorry.
And just to add to that, any screening for mechanical equipment does not violate the building height requirement.
Thank you.
Brad, you're looking at me, so I guess you would like me to
Well,
discuss.
so I did a little bit of a poor job with my outline that Ms. Thompson and Mr. Coates have. I missed traffic. Mr. Keeley, if you could very briefly address the traffic study Ms. DePietro referenced.
Sure. Mark Keeley, Traffic Concepts. So my firm conducted the traffic impact study for this project, and as all studies go, we began the process with a scoping meeting here in Bel Air with the county staff attending, and members from the State Highway Administration also attended the meeting. And the purpose of that meeting is to set the scope of work and the analysis techniques to determine capacity at the intersections. So the scope of this study, starting east along Bond Street, was the first intersection we looked at was Pennsylvania Avenue at Bond, Lester Way at Bond. We looked at Wallace at Gordon Street. We looked at Gordon at Bond / Main Street, and we looked at Main Street at Broadway. The study was conducted, as all studies are, with three analysis periods: existing, the background, and future. Future, including the proposed site. All the intersections would operate at acceptable levels of service. The site, just so you know, generates 94 AM, 109 PM, and 100 Saturday trips. All of those trips are auto trips. We didn't calculate, walk trips, and we did not calculate an internal capture, meaning residents visiting the restaurants. So these are all trips generated by the ITE Trip Generation Manual. I did receive a letter from Mr. Small dated February 23. Essentially, the town approved the traffic study with conditions. State Highway also approved the traffic study, and we got comments from Hartford County, which we addressed. And I should have mentioned there were 4 iterations of the study. But several of those were due to site plan changes, but we also revised the study based on state and county comments. So to conclude, the traffic study was approved by all agencies. I do have that February 23rd letter in hand, which I'll address. Part of that letter, it talks about sidewalks, possible traffic calming. We addressed, one of the comments was to address the queue at Bond Street on Broadway, approaching Main Street. So I'll provide additional information about that. And then we'll provide a summary, which was requested in the letter.
Thank you.
Well, I have a question also about the school bus pickup area.
I think Amy can address that question.
So we ran the turning templates that would work. We're proposing to do that bus stop pickup in the loading space that's already allocated on the site plan.
That'll end up be coordinated with
Board of
Harford County
Education.
Public Schools.
Right.
Mr. Goddard?
So as you can see, these are the aerial renderings which we had done. You know, as I said in my opening remarks, it was very important for us to understand and make certain that this project was going to fit within the Bond Street corridor and complement the existing architecture and buildings in the downtown Bel Air corridor, and also not have any negative impact on our neighbors along Wallace Street, which the original project, in my opinion, did, which is why we eliminated the second building. So what you're looking at here is just a bird's eye view looking along Bond Street that has all the outdoor dining area and shows how the terrace is elevated, and how it sort of coordinates with the front of the lot, so that you have probably 200 plus feet between this building and the properties on Wallace. Next one. So this building shows sort of the rhythm of how this building pertains to, or how it interplays with not only the Pocket Park, but also the existing 130 North Bond and the further government buildings along Bond Street. You'll notice that it's similar in size to those buildings, and it creates a very nice, in my opinion, architectural rhythm. I'm not a real architect, I'm just a wannabe architect, but I think it looks good. There was some question in the report about what were we planning on doing to harmonize 130 North Bond, which is the existing building, to the new building. So the answer to the question is, we do intend to make improvements to that building, but until the building is built, at least out of the ground frame-wise, it's not 100% capable of being ascertained. But here's what we preliminarily have in mind. We intend to increase the storefront glass along the Bond Street side of 130 North Bond, which is where the Young Chefs Academy is, to create a more congruent feel with the new building. We intend to possibly carry over some of the metal canopies once we determine the exact window heights, so that those canopies were moved across the facade in a consistent manner. We're definitely going to rework that shingle roof that's there now, and that very strange barrel vault architecture, and probably make a similar cornice to what we have in the new building. Just make sure that it's appropriate in scale. There's going to be new signage and lighting for the tenants along the marquee that runs a long way the lot, and ultimately there will be new windows that will be installed in that building to match the style and material of what's in the standard on bond. It is our intention to, because that building is 100% leased, so we will probably make some of the more disruptive changes when or if there's a turn in tenancy. It is our intention to bring that building into the standard on bond brand, and to bring the rents up to the market rents, or very similar to the market rents that will be experienced in the standard on bond and on a long-term basis. But that's how we believe we can harmonize it. Now, our goal is not to make the building look identical. Our goal is to make the building appear to be in architectural harmony. I actually think that the rhythm that this building presents, when you look down Bond Street from the courthouse to Cortland, to the little house that we have at Norris House, to the Pocket Park, to the height of Harford Mutual Building, it's exactly what's needed to revitalize that corridor and to give it the next height up, because everything else is so low.
Can I just ask one quick question? I mean, I think the project, for what you've shown tonight as a concept, is pretty cool. But that's also one of the lowest lying areas probably on Bond Street. And I looked through here to see elevations, but I don't quite see it. So how does this compare to, from a height standpoint, to the old courthouse versus Mary Riff style building? Are you at It's the same height, you should be a little bit lower,
Yeah,
probably
so
like
we're-
about 5 to
we're-
10 feet would be my guess.
I want to say, Kevin gave me the numbers at the Board of Appeals. I want to say we're 5 feet lower than Risto and 10 to 15 feet lower than the Circuit Court building, and we're lower than Hartford Mutual's cupola where the clock is.
Yeah, the back side of the courthouse is quite high.
Right.
The Risto is about the same, maybe a
Right.
little bit higher.
We have those exact numbers from the Board of Appeals hearing we could provide you.
I know that that's one of the lower lying areas on Bond
Yeah.
Street, so even though 5 stories, the massing seems huge, with the setback from Bond Street, I think it kind of softens the
Mhm.
blow a little bit.
Yeah.
But still, it's 55 feet, so. I do have one other question. For 130, are you butting right up to the building, or is there a gap there? or-
No, we're we're going to 0 on that building.
Okay, so like any windows in the back, they're gone on 130? and
I'm sorry?
Any windows on the back of 130, they'll all be gone?
So so that's an interesting architectural history for that building. So that building has absolutely no windows on the back because, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but that building was originally intended to have a mirror image of the building built on the other side, and it was also intended to have a 3rd level. So the roof of that building is actually a concrete floor that has aggregate on top of it. And that's why when I first came to Bel Air, one of the things that struck me in this corridor is it literally looked like, I asked somebody, did the rest of this building burn down or something? Like, why is it like this? Like, it looks like somebody took a miter saw and just like chopped the back of it off. But I finally got the rendering from Bishop Rob, and it was his intention to double the size of that building and put another floor on top of it. So there's absolutely no windows there, and it's just cinder block. And in fact, that's one of the eyesores portions of this corridor that we're trying to address is the fact that there's no windows in that building. It looks, everyone that comes to town asks, what happened to that building? Like, why is it like that? So no, we're not eliminating it. It's
Okay.
funny, it's a sheer wall. There's no windows, there's nothing there.
I don't really look at it, but that's.
Oh, go look at it.
Because
It's-
I'm always going that way,
Yeah,
so I never
it's the
look behind.
craziest thing I've never seen a building that just so abruptly ends like that. It's like, and stop. I mean, there's no vents coming at the back, there's nothing.
Thank you.
So this rendering, I think, nicely shows the nice width of the buffer of our friends at Wallace Street, as well as the ample amount of landscaping, way more landscaping than exists currently right now. And what I like about this is it kind of shows the horizon, because the parking garage is also a very tall structure, mostly because of the topography, but also because it is a very large building. And I just think that this demonstrates that the harmony that, as you point out, it is a large building. It is a statement. It is the standard on bond. It is a statement building. It's intended to be a trophy building. It is intended to be the best because we've designed it to be the best, and we're going to use the best materials. And that's the whole purpose behind making it look pronounced but not offensive. And I think you have a humble architecture there, and I really compliment, Nestor and I have developed a great friendship. Like I said, I'm a wannabe student architect, but I don't have any formal training. But working with Nestor and traveling to Greenville to look at these various architectural buildings for inspiration, I think we just hit the nail on the head. I mean, we've redesigned it to really something that I'm very proud of.
With that, Madam Chair, we would open it up to any more questions.
All right. As to Don's question about the elevations, this is part of the findings of facts of the Board of Appeals for this building. I'm just going to quote right from the opinion. Mr. Small testified, and his supplemental staff report provided further specifications of these buildings in comparison to the height of proposed building number 1, which is this building. Mr. Small details that based on the plans and elevations provided by the applicant, the roof of building number 1 will be at or near elevation 432, assuming 372 elevation at the ground floor. Mr. Small explained that the elevation is calculated with sea level at 0. Mr. Small compared building number 1's elevation and height requests to a survey of the height of notable buildings made by the town in 2017. He noted that the height of the Mary E. Risto building at 3.5 stories was approximately 55 feet in height. Furthermore, the Circuit Court for Harford County, South Bond Street side, at 4 stories, was approximately 76 feet in height. I hope that helped clarify.
All right, other questions before we open it up to
I have none at this
citizens?
time.
All right.
I'm curious as to what Hartford Mutual's interest is in this, and they're listed as an owner-operator. Is that because of the parking?
No, so Hartford Mutual owns the land where the pocket park is. And see the red shaded area in the top there? They
Oh, okay.
own the land, and when I was on the Bel Air Downtown Alliance, we were trying to raise money for a long time to try to put a pocket park in there. Hartford Mutual was willing to donate the land, but they were not going to fund the park, which they shouldn't have to. It's not their responsibility. So one of the unique attributes of this project is that it allowed us to have this piece of land to create this pocket park. And my wife and I have a charitable foundation called the Wayne and Molly Goddard Foundation, and we are actually donating about $100,000 for an art amenity that goes into this park. But we had to, Hartford Mutual would not sell us the land. It's very complicated for a mutual insurance company to sell anything. It has to get a shareholder vote. But they have leased it to us basically into perpetuity. The lease runs in 30-year chunks.
Okay.
And so we're going to be responsible for it.
So but Hartford Mutual is not going to participate in any parking?
I'm sorry, not going to participate in, no.
And-
Hartford Mutual's been a fantastic neighbor to us, and we're certainly grateful for them letting us lease the land from them. But they simply said that they did not have the excess parking available to allow us to dedicate the parking in the way of a lease. Now what we all know, any of us that live in the town of Bel Air, is that Hartford Mutual is a very generous sharer of its parking. Everybody that parks at Newberry, people that park at our building park over there, the yoga people park over there, people park there during the various festivals. But this sort of runs with the concept of how parking seems in a town area, parking seems to solve the problem itself.
Mm-hmm.
While they're not willing to give us a dedicated 20 or 30 spot lease, by the same token, they have allowed and will continue to allow people to park there when there's adequate space.
Right, because you can get from Lester Way to Gordon Street by going through the parking lots.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So it's all open, so I didn't know whether or not, like I say, they were gonna,
No, we have no formal, the only lease that we have with Hartford Mutual is in that land for the pocket park because, like I said, we needed to put the pocket park in and, we realized, or we both collaboratively realized that one of the hurdles that was to that pocket park before we came along is Hartford Mutual didn't mind us using the land, but they didn't want to have the liability for it. So they didn't want to maintain it, they didn't want to insure it, they didn't want to put the necessary lighting on it, which is all, again, totally understandable, and Hartford Mutual is a great partner. So this worked out to be, a great synergy here because now we're illuminating that park with the lights and the electricity that comes off of our poles at 130 North Bond. We're pulling that into our insured area. We're policing that. We're picking up trash. We're doing snow and ice removal. We're doing, the trees and the landscaping and the mulching and everything. So we have, one thing is putting these pocket parks in. Another thing is maintaining them.
right.
And we're going to be maintaining them, which, again, that's Hartford Mutual. It was an easy negotiation for that. And they really wanted to help with the parking. And if they had been reduced to their virtual work from home during COVID, it would have been no problem. But Hartford Mutual, I don't know if you know this or not, but they're really growing. They're acquiring other insurance companies. They're hiring more people. They actually bring in quite a few people from out of town, like auditors and potential people like that, that really need a place to stay for a short-term situation or even a rental situation.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Wayne. The only other question I had this time is, along Lester Way, there are gonna be sidewalks.
That's correct.
Correct. And there are two, I'm gonna call them curb cuts going into the parking lots, and I'd like to see the sidewalk extended, or some sort of an apron extended through those curb cuts, ingress, egress, for pedestrian safety. That's a pedestrian right-of-way.
Well, yes, of course, they'll be, those sidewalks will be constructed in accordance with ADA and SHA requirements. They'll have the indentations and whatever is required to do that.
Okay, good.
Quick question about the apartment aspect of things. With the office space on the 5th floor and retail on the 1st floor, and the apartments 2 through 4, basically, will they be like card access only, or how's that
So
going to work so that, people aren't just traipsing through the apartments that probably shouldn't be there?
So we have 2 high-speed elevators, high-speed hydraulic elevators in here. And we have an excellent controlled access team. And the way it's going to work is you can control so to answer your question, yes, they're going to be controlled access. So one elevator, we don't know if it's going to be the left or the right one, is going to be set so that during working hours, say 8 o'clock to about 5:30, that one, there will be one elevator that will skew toward going from 1 to 5. And that will only be only be able to be called into service is if somebody on 2, 3, and 4, or I'm sorry, if somebody on 5 doesn't call it, it can be called into service for 2, 3, and 4. The technology that they have today with being able to control access is really amazing. But having said that, this is going to be a fully controlled access building. From the front door to the elevator, it's not going to be intrusive, but it's going to be secure because we feel like that's what our constituents want. And it's probably going to be a fob system, possibly some other type of controlled access system, but you're not going to be able to just get into the elevator and ride up and down it, really for anyone. That's just not, like you said, it's just not safe, and that's not what you would expect in a luxury product like this.
Thank you. Oh, one other question. About the 3-foot setback, are we talking this area right here?
Brad, can you go back to the aerial that shows the front of 130?
I think we're
It's
talking
the
about this.
property line between
Hartford Mutual.
In the
No.
back here?
That's already existing.
This? I thought it
park-
was this here. Because
It is that.
here's Hartford Mutual here.
One more, Brad.
It's the parcel behind the pocket park that is adjacent to the Hartford Mutual parking.
Here's the pocket park, so it's this section right here, off of 130. Because here's 130, it's this
Brad, can
section
you
right here.
go up one more render? There you go. So you can see there's already a 15-foot buffer there between the 2 parking lots. We're just adjusting it back along here. It's this area right here.
Correct. So, do we need, it's parking to parking, do we need another buffer there?
Typically, commercial to commercial is a 3-foot buffer. That's something that you can take into account as to whether or not it's necessary, given the fact that the adjacent property has substantial green space.
So the green space is Hartford Mutual and the curb is theirs.
Right, the property line runs along the curb.
Okay.
We started here.
Right, okay.
Hartford Mutual's here, and this
Gotcha.
is the green space. But this rendering is accurate. That shows depicts how it's gonna look with a 3-foot setback.
I've got just one real quick question.
Sure.
Can you bring up the site plan? I'm just asking whether or not, right now, the spaces that are reserved are the 15 tandem spaces, total of 30, up against the middle island. And then the 15 spaces that are immediately on the other side, what would be the east side of that island. You see what I'm talking about?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Wouldn't it be, I see kind of an inherent conflict of residential folks wanting to use those and the commercial that's right next door. Wouldn't it be more likely to put them up in the corner for the reserved parking spaces? Because you're gonna have to sign those spaces, reserved for apartment number 2 and apartment number 3. So those can't be used by the commercial. Question.
That's really up to our client, if they're happy with that. I don't see any problem.
I'm just thinking that typically the residential used to walk in a little bit further versus the commercial. You might have an inherent conflict there. I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, the site plan would allow us to reallocate those spots. You know, when it comes time to, you know, get closer to the building permit time, we can certainly address that and consider putting the ones further away.
Right, so if you have, like the tandem spaces on the other side, the 30 spaces, those would be, I assume, for the 2-bedroom units that would end up utilizing those 2 spaces. And then up in the corner might be your 1-bedrooms that, and that way you're providing more parking for the commercial. The second question I've got is the other tandem spaces, what you've described as being, and those tandem spaces, I think you've described as being kind of right next to the folks on Wallace.
The Wallace boundary line, correct?
Right. And so do you anticipate 30 employees associated with the retail and the office use?
Probably no more than that.
Right. I mean, I'm just, because I'm trying to figure out what would happen with the rest of those spaces. And if there weren't 30. And those would you be open to signing those or designating those spots as reserved?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right, we'd like to have public comment. If you'll please come up, state your name, address. Any order. There'll be a 3-minute limit.
Good evening. Renee Kuhn, 121 Wallace Street, Bel Air. I'm just going to start with that just because I had some follow-up questions, just to make sure I have an understanding of what you're saying. So we're looking at the 2 grayed out areas, correct? And both of those are those tandem slots?
Hang on, one second. Okay, this is not a quasi-judicial proceeding like Board of
I'm
Appeals.
just asking for
I understand,
clarification.
but if you have questions, you need to address it to the Planning Commission. They're not
Okay.
witnesses, okay?
Don't they know? So am I allowed to ask that question?
Sure.
Planning Commission.
Yeah, they
Not-
turn around and ask the applicant, but
You
you
cannot,
Oh, okay.
they
That's
can ask the
fine.
applicant.
Okay,
Yes, it
that's
seems
fine.
cumbersome.
That's
Okay.
totally fine. Okay, I was just like, can I ask a question then? Okay, so, like what you were just saying, the ones on the right side are the ones that are
Yes.
the shaded.
The 2 dark
two
gray
dark
ones are the tandem ones.
Correct. And you were saying the right is the one that is currently going to be assigned to the residential, and the left side was the one that was the mixed-use tandem?
Correct. The one in the back is the mixed use, and the one in the center is.
Correct. Okay, so
apartments.
that's what I said. Okay, I was just asking for clarification. You answered my question about the pocket park already. What are the types of trees that are, I know that you have like a requirement, so I'm just curious. Are the ones that border the residential?
The border residential?
Yeah, the ones that go to my backyard.
Those are English oak, and Amy, correct me if I misspeak, but I think they're almost primarily English oak. English oak are very, what you call fastigiate or columnars trees, and they grow tall and
Okay.
thick.
That was one of my questions. Another question, just to make sure I was understanding, the 5th floor is the office space?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
That was answered. 1 minute. Okay. The parking analysis seems not to address like the empty nesters that are staying at home and or some of the residents that might telework, so I'm just a little concerned about the parking with that. I was wondering if that's something that is ever considered in a parking analysis, that the
We would hope,
gentleman
they
over
would, they
there.
would hope that that would reduce the movement and therefore reduce the parking problem. If somebody didn't move their car,
Correct.
that would be a plus.
So then, if the residential parking is covered, and the left side is for the mixed use. So does the mixed use, I heard like talk of employee parking, like, you know, for office, the people, I guess, on the 5th floor, or I guess, where are the restaurant?
I think ideally what the applicant is looking for is that the back parking that would butt up to your backyard, all right, would be for the office
Yeah,
from 8 to 5.
correct, I understand
And
that.
then at 5 o'clock, which may be somewhat unrealistic, the employees that come in to park to work in the restaurant would take over those spaces.
Okay, and what about the restaurant customers?
The restaurant customers, as Mr. Small has indicated, would be parking in the other areas that aren't reserved for
Okay, that's
either
what-
the office or the apartment people.
So like that north side, like the one that abuts to the Park.
The one up top there is what Kevin just suggested, maybe change. Kevin's, right now, they're talking about resident here and here. Kevin suggested maybe taking the residents from here and putting them up there so that the people.
I understand.
The people in the commercial aspect for the retail could run in from here.
Okay, thank
you're
you.
looking
And
at
I
the-
would just want to add one more thing. I just want to say that I do think that the materials are much improved from the last one. I do have height concerns still, obviously. But I also wanted to just address the same market analysis that he was inspired by. On page 16 that he referenced, the picture that he referenced, that was his inspirational pick, actually is a 4-story picture. And the caption with it says that 3 to 4-story buildings would be ideal. And on page 5, it does also say that a 4-story is appropriate and ideal for the downtown Bel Air area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hello again. My name is Peg Lucas. I'm at 516 Robinson Street.
Sorry, Peg, she
Try
can't hear you.
again. Is that better? Outside voice. So unaccustomed to that. Talk to the kids, huh? Okay. I'm Peg Lucas. I'm at 516 Robinson Street, Bel Air. Had a part of Bel Air like my entire life. Currently, for 34 years, I live less than a mile from this location. I can just say this project, it ticks off all the boxes. It's the kind of mixed-use project that we've looked for some time. It's been called for in various documents. This area of downtown Bel Air needs this. It's changed over a few iterations, but I really like it. It is just what the revitalization of Bond Street needs. How many years have we talked about what Bond Street needs? You've been here, you know this. You know it's kind of like the forgotten side of our corridor. Walkability. I walk in Bel Air a lot. This location, it gives everything. You've got houses of worship, you've got a grocery store, you've got a library, you've got municipal buildings, restaurants, parks,
minutes.
offices, shopping in downtown Bel Air. I don't know how we did without this building. So I just urge you, please, Planning Commission, get all the little things worked out, but we need this in Bel Air. Please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peg.
Bill Coningsby, 110 Wallace Street. Just two things. One, on Lester Way, if you're turning right onto Bond, currently it's pretty narrow. I'm not sure, it's hard to tell from the drawings if the road's gonna be wider or not. But right now, if you have a car, it's turning right, and a car wanted to just come down Bond and turn right onto Leicester, it's pretty tight. And visibility, if you're trying to look down Bond to see if there's cars coming, it is somewhat difficult to see with the shrubs as currently exist. It's something to consider as far as the trees and stuff go. Also, if you're encouraging walkability on Bond Street, the crosswalk at Lee, across in front of the chiropractor driveway there, cars are going very fast down Bond. It's very difficult to cross at that point. We cross every day to take my kids to school, and you should probably try to do something about the speed on Bond if you want to have people walking through there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Koenigsberg, I had a quick question for you.
Yep.
Right now, there are parking permits required for Wallace that go from 7:30 in the morning to 5:30 at night,
Yes.
7 days a week.
Yep.
Would you want to expand that at all to 24 hours a day or not?
Certainly. I mean, would the residents of the building be able to acquire parking passes the same way that people on Wall Street would?
No.
Okay. I've lived there for 8 years. I don't have a parking pass. I never bothered because it's never been enforced. So sure.
That's what we're hoping.
But it would need to be enforced, you know, to make it a point. But if you want to expand it and enforce it, by all means.
Okay.
But I lived there since 2015, and I never obtained one, because what for? Thank you.
Isn't there an intention of widening that road itself, Leicester Way?
Widening Leicester? Yes.
Mhm, yeah.
I mean, it says it's 24 feet.
Right. And
Right now, it's like 17, 18.
Yeah, it's going to be widened to 24 feet.
And there was also just recently a great study on areas for crossing the streets, and we're going to add more signs. There's going to be additional striping and so forth.
Right. One of the things that the town will be going through over the next 3 months is Safe Streets for All. And while we're not studying that particular location, that did come up in the public meeting.
Good. So hopefully that will be addressed.
Further to that gentleman's point, though, it appears from the site plan that Leicester tapers the closer it gets to Bond Street.
It actually angles. They would have to be 24 feet wide, the entire length. That's what we would require. The problem is that the curb on the other side of the road, which would be the south side of Leicester, does that same thing.
Okay.
Kevin, didn't
Awkward.
the Board of Town Commissioners also deal with this? They added Leicester Way on both sides to like no parking?
Right. Right now, it was kind of it was basically a trying to take what's already signed out there as prohibited and catch up the legislation with it. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
right now, it is signed as prohibited on both sides. So,
Okay.
and we'll probably end up replacing those signs because they're hard to read.
Okay, I just remember them passing something
They
recently.
did.
Yeah.
Parking is prohibited on both sides of Leicester.
Okay.
Nathan Booth. I live at 135 Wallace Street, directly behind this project. I just want to reiterate my support of the project. Currently, when you look out back of my house, you see a dump truck and a lot of through traffic. It's not very desirable. I welcome not only the restaurants and the apartment space, but to some of the concerns, I feel like the restaurant space in their peak operation hours, they're going to overflow park in Hartford Mutual, just as all the other businesses do. On a Saturday and Sunday morning, it's really a joy to see everything behind Newberry come alive, the pocket park, and I feel like this is just going to add to it in an area that's in desperate need of it. So just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Brendan Butler, 640 Roland Avenue. Just wanted to say I'm in full support of this project. I think it's something Bel Air desperately needs. I'm born and raised in Bel Air. I walk in town all the time, and I'm very excited about this project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Evening all. Good to see you.
Pat Richards, 350 McCormick Lane, in full support of the project. This is exactly the kind of infill development that the town should be supporting. Taking an underutilized piece of property and turning it into something that is a showcase, something that is a anchor, something that is another reason for folks to come to Bel Air, in full support of this project in all of our retail corridors. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your Board of Appeals work. You guys did the heavy lifting for us.
He missed that one.
Just to clarify, I can take no credit for the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm only a lowly alternate. So.
Chris Street, 118 South Main Street. I'm full support of this project. As chair of the Economic Development Commission for the town of Bel Air, and have been a member of that commission for almost 15 years, we've been pressing for high-density, upscale housing in the town of Bel Air, and this is the perfect spot. So fully support it and love to see it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Charles Goddard. I live with East McPhail Woods Crossing, and I just want to say, as the older man, I'm glad to see the town building more upscale units that possibly I could move into later and have a restaurant down in the bottom. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much.
And come visit me too.
All right.
Todd Boyle, 619 South Shamrock Road. I prepared some nice words to say about Wayne and his team, but I think they covered all the things tonight. So the only thing I wanted to mention, a lot of discussion about parking, some mentions of the parking study, but maybe there needs to be more discussion about how the 22 parking study noted that in projects just like this, 1.5 parking spaces per 1 bedroom, 2 parking spaces per 2 bedroom, et cetera, that Bel Air's numbers were skewed high as compared to our peers. And I know that the commission took that in consideration tonight, but maybe it's something that the planning commission can mention to the board of commissioners that they need to maybe take a look at that study to maybe address that in future codes, because hopefully there will be other projects like this that come down the road in the coming years. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. No one else? Well, this is a breath of fresh air.
I have a
Sir,
couple
next up.
more things, I'm sorry, for the applicant.
Please.
You had a letter from Maryland Department of Transportation dated February 23rd. You also had comments from the Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company and from Harford County Public Schools, and then from the town architectural consultant. I just want to make sure that you're okay with all of those comments, because those will be included in whatever.
So we're okay with those comments. The only question that we do have is with respect to the fire department or whoever asked us to put a fire hydrant down along Wallace Street. It appears from our review of their comments that they may have thought we were having 2 buildings still. So if we could just get some clarification on that, everything else I think we're okay with. But I just want to make sure that they realize this is just a single building crowded toward the front of Bond Street and not all the way down.
Can I suggest that your engineer get in contact with Bel Air Volunteer Fire Company to clarify that?
I would accept that recommendation.
On it.
And then one last item, I'm sorry. I keep looking at the parking and how tandem, and this is what I'm thinking, and I want to see whether or not this is something that you would be accepting of. Take and put the residential tandem on the other side, on the, what would be the west side of the site, adjacent to Wallace Street, and put the mixed use in the middle. Just flip those. And the reason I'm thinking about that is it starts to put all of that residential parking at the furthest walk from the entrance to the building. And typically, the one problem that we have had in town is nobody wants to walk anywhere. There was our parking consultant who provided that study said the town doesn't have a parking problem, it has a walking problem. And because nobody wants to be too far from that front door. And I'm just trying to make sure that that is something that, you know, if the planning commission approves this, whether or not that, I mean, that they can outline that kind of requirement.
So what Amy whispered in my ear is, yes, we can do that.
Okay. That's all I got.
Great.
So obviously, this is a pretty big project, and the project's received a significant amount of public opposition, not necessarily here, but in the Board of Appeals. So I believe Kevin and I have spoken. It is our recommendation that the Planning Commission tables their decision tonight and instructs staff and council to produce a draft opinion, written opinion for consideration at its next hearing. And I'm sure Kevin will walk me through that whole tandem thing.
And that's pending your deliberations.
Correct.
Why?
Yeah,
I mean-
why? I thought we were pretty much to the finish line here.
This is a decision that you make, but
It is entirely up to you. I can
think
only
the
give
point
advice.
is
And
that
this is
if
because
it
of
goes
the-
to litigation,
Yes.
there's
Okay,
a
okay.
firm
All right.
record as to why
Correct.
we approved it.
Okay, I mean, that's a valid point, so.
Assuming we're not-
Mr. Powell, I agree. I think having a written record would be
And
my
We
preference.
don't oppose it either. It's not going to impact our process.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Very good. Okay.
hearing closed?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Now you have deliberations. Is there anything else after what you've heard from the applicant that you want to discuss amongst yourselves? Are you okay with maybe flipping those the parking?
I thought that was a very good idea.
Is it incumbent of us to tell them where to put the
Yeah,
parking?
I wouldn't have even.
Can you guys
that
keep it down? We're still on the record
part of
here.
our approval,
Yes.
but that would be
I'm
something-
sorry, our meeting is continuing. If you'd like to stay, that's fine.
We just closed the hearing on standard on bond, and
Yes.
so the members of the planning commission can deliberate and talk amongst themselves as to their decision. You're welcome to stay, you don't have to, but there's not gonna be any more comments from the applicant or engineer or anything like that,
I mean,
okay?
I've got no problem with telling them where to do it, but I don't understand, as long as they're happy with,
Yes,
I mean, I get your point where you want it closer, because nobody, I mean, we got a parking garage in half a block off of Main Street, and nobody wants to use it because they want to be out
But I mean,
front.
if they're
Whereas
meeting-
if they were in Baltimore and they had a parking garage a half a block from where they wanted to be, they thought they were died and gone to heaven. So
Yeah.
I get that.
No, I'm only thinking in terms of if somebody shows up and they see no spaces available, the place they're gonna go is Hartford Mutual, or they're gonna go to Wallace, or they're gonna go to 126 North Main, which is a vacant building. The more spaces that can, and I think basically the residential is set. I don't think that that's gonna be a problem. It's the commercial and it's those Friday and Saturday nights.
Yep.
That you want to maintain as much walkable, visible parking as you possibly can. And that's where I came from, but you don't have to require that. That can be something that the applicant can just decide on their own.
I mean, they're gonna have a big problem on a Saturday night with somebody taking up a parking spot, and there's still 18 feet there that you could put a car in there. Right. That's gonna be the problem.
Well, and typically, that's what I'm thinking, that's why I asked the question about employees. Because you're gonna have those spaces that are going to be available because the office people have gone home. And so you're gonna have probably a good half or of the 15 that would be allocated to mixed use. So that's the kind of question that I'm talking about, that if you have no problem with that, I'm good to go.
Well, it's not, to me, it's not a matter of whether we have a problem with it, it's, are they meeting the parking requirement, and it would seem to be a good recommendation to them, but I don't know why they wouldn't be able to make that decision.
They could. But remember,
But
you're
I-
approving a plan that's gonna show something on there. They have to,
We're gonna
To
re-
adhere
we're
to
gonna-
that plan.
We're gonna improve spaces and tandem, but not necessarily,
you're also, whatever's reserved, you're approving that. And
Okay.
are you requiring the 30 tandem spaces that are mixed use? Because right now, it's not shown as being reserved.
Okay.
I see the logic in what you're presenting. Oh, I'm sorry. I see the logic in what Kevin is suggesting.
I mean, I'm not saying the total number of spaces is a problem. I'm saying that possibly the positioning and the location is my concern.
It's a valid point. I mean, I agree.
yeah, I don't disagree with the point, it's just a question of has the standing to.
Well, since you're approving shared parking, and you're approving tandem parking, you can place those conditions on the approval if you wish.
Do you
Can we
want-
leave it to the developer to?
You could. I'm not saying that I'm making a suggestion, not a requirement.
I mean, just from the discussion today, I think that he understands the nature of the beast probably better than we do. I'd hate to micromanage this thing. Either
That's
you're in
fine.
favor of the tandem parking, or at least are willing to allow it as a concept, and let him make it work for his building, rather than us try to say, this is the way you've got to use the tandem parking.
Yep.
Do you have a thought? Do,
So what about the 3 feet
yes.
issue?
Look, to me, the 3 feet is
I mean, I don't see.
foregone conclusion. I don't think there's any way he could provide that without abutting the property line.
Okay, good.
Now, were you guys, I'm just trying to follow where your thought process is. Were you guys okay with what Kevin had suggested about moving the tandem, the last iteration of what Kevin was talking to Amy about?
I
I do,
understand
but
why
I
he's
don't-
doing it. It makes all the sense in the world. but
Okay.
I guess, like what Keith says, I don't know why we're making that decision. I mean, if it's tandem's tandem, however they come up with their tandem, you know, that's on them. I mean,
Okay.
that's a business decision that they're gonna have to live with, so.
Okay.
You weren't talking about moving the tandem, you were talking about changing the way it was reserved.
Yes.
How it's reserved.
Oh, sorry, I
Yeah, the
thought we were
tandem
moving it up
spaces-
to the corner.
The tandem spaces stay where
Okay.
they're at. It's just,
Who's
what's
gonna-
gonna
who's
happen
gonna
is you're
park
gonna,
it? Who's gonna
whatever's
park it?
designated as reserved is gonna be signed that way, and no one can park there but the person it's reserved for. So, my preference is those go out to the periphery so that all of the other spaces can be dedicated to mixed use and office. That's
Okay.
my point. I don't-
Okay.
I think it's a valid point.
Except that if you are a tenant in one of the one-bedroom apartments, you don't get 2 parking spaces necessarily. Maybe you do. Maybe they charge extra for if you want a second spot. So
That's
you
probably what
can't
he'll do.
assign them a tandem spot.
Right, so what may happen is that if
There were
there's
singles.
somebody in the one bedroom who wants to come in and utilize one of the tandem spaces, I'm sure that he won't say go away. So that could easily be done that way. But you're only concerned with what the code requires. The code requires that one space, at least one space, be reserved for every dwelling unit on the property. So that's 30 dwelling units, that's the minimum he has to provide, as far as reserved parking.
Right, but our parking requirements assume 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom apartment and 1.5.
And
For
1.5
one?
for a one-bedroom.
So it contemplates instances in which a 1-bedroom apartment would need more than 1 space.
It does, and I think but there's a difference between reserved spots and just parking. So you should
Understood.
have a parking space that for a one-bedroom that has one reserved spot, but they have 2 cars, and they just park somewhere else in the lot.
I feel that the best way to manage that is to let the property owner who's renting to both mixed use as well as or business restaurant as well as the residents resolve what works best for this situation. For all we know is empty nesters might be a bunch of people on walkers that don't want to go to the other side of the parking lot. So
It could be.
Yeah.
let him decide.
Right. It's up to you guys. I'm just throwing that out. Anybody else have any opinions? We got to write this so that it's.
I know.
I concur.
So
with-
do you.
I just don't see why we would want to tell them that, and they might want to change it from time to time, as long as they're meeting the requirement and you have the spaces. And if it's so many reserved somewhere, then that's good. They might want to have their tenants, their residential tenants might want to be closer to the building. That might be the priority.
Well, it sounds like the consensus is not to ask for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there, and I'm sorry to keep
we know-
beating this to death.
Yeah. Yes.
Is the 15 spaces that are single spaces, leave those where they're at, where they're shown? Because those are right next to the
No,
building.
I think what you said is correct, put them up in that.
I know, but that's got to be a requirement, so.
Okay, well.
Yeah. So if it is.
I'm doing
Sorry
my
about
best
that.
here.
Oh, right. How's that?
As I understand it, the only requirement is that each apartment must have, excuse me, a reserved spot, one
Right.
reserved spot. That's not a requirement for the office,
No.
right? So he's got plenty of spaces where he can reserve spots, whether they're on the north side of the parking lot or immediately outside the entrance to the building on the east side of the parking lot, other than the handicap spots.
Okay.
Right. Let him do it.
All right.
Okay.
That's, everybody else agrees with it. I want to make sure I have a consensus before we write this up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Do we talk?
I
about-
think we have an agreement.
Do we talk about the, as Pete wanted the sidewalk to go all the way through their property? Because the landscaper, the ones shows that that last island doesn't have anything going through it.
Can you, are you talking about as you get closer to?
On Lester, as you
Lester?
go back towards Wallace.
Yeah, on Lester
Yeah, that
Way.
was,
There are two ingress egresses for the parking,
right.
and I'd just like to see that sidewalk carried through. Whether
That-
there's an apron there or some sort of indication that it's a pedestrian right-of-way.
Right, so there's two options that you can pursue. One is a concrete apron, which has certain regulations a part of it, and it definitely is ADA accessible, and it represents, it is a design that shows a motorist that this is a pedestrian
Exactly.
crossing. The other option is to leave it as a asphalt and then have them mark a crosswalk in there, whichever you prefer. Both of them are regs that we can pull from the Harford County Development Code.
Can I weigh in on that?
Yes.
I would prefer to allow us to be able to stripe it, because there's gonna be a problem with plowing snow if you make us put a concrete apron in, because sometimes those two materials settle at different rates. And as a person that formerly plowed snow and almost went through the windshield of a truck, you do not wanna have that lip right there. I'd rather just stripe it, and I'll just continuously stripe it as it gets faded.
What you see
Stripe.
along Bond Street is what could go in there as a concrete apron. So this is different than
Yeah.
that.
Stripe it.
Striping. Okay.
And one thing is, we intentionally, I think, told MRA not to continue the sidewalk towards Wallace.
Right.
So it stops there. We might put a handicap ramp there just because if there's some instance in the future they want that extended, but right now we're not contemplating that.
Okay, we didn't quite go through the landscape plan itself, but it
Okay.
talks about fee and lieu.
Fee in lieu for forest conservation?
Right.
Yeah, that's something that really isn't a purview of planning commission. It's a requirement that they have to provide fee in lieu as per forest conservation.
Okay.
How about the changing of the walkway to the park, to the pocket park?
That's up to you. I'm thinking of easy access on what would be the east side of the dumpster, straight to the park. I think what they're looking at is the integrity of the design of the park to be linear and to finish out at the end. And they said that they were going to require an access easement. I'm just thinking in terms of the easy, because you're looking at pedestrians. You're basically, one is a straight crossing, or sort of a straight crossing. The other one's catty corner.
It's an extra 5 steps.
Huh?
It's an extra 5 steps.
It's an extra.
If they can't do that, they shouldn't be going to the pocket park.
Yeah, that could be true. I'm making these suggestions. You guys don't have to.
The one valid point you give is that you're actually coming out, if cars are coming in this way, or if more cars are coming in through 130, you would probably want people walking in front of the dumpsters than walking out from behind a dumpster wall where people may not see them, so.
Well, that's why I suggested that. If you're coming in off a bond, you want to see
Don,
those people.
she didn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry, I'll yell into this, okay? So basically, as you're coming in 130, then it's easier to see before the dumpster wall if you're walking across versus behind the dumpster wall.
Correct.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Got it?
Is there an art amenity involved here?
No,
No.
I don't believe so. I gotta look at that.
Can I
We
speak
can
to
check
that?
on.
I thought there was something mentioned.
Yeah, can I speak to that? So I designed the pocket park based upon, so the pocket park's going to tell the story of how we came to be. There's go-
Wayne, make it real quick,
Yeah, there's gonna-
because the public isn't getting the right to
Yeah.
say anything. You are.
Okay, well, if you want to know, I'll tell you. If you want to shut me down, you can shut me down.
I
No,
tell you
just
what
tell-
we can do.
tell us
We
real
can-
quick,
We
art
can
amenity.
review whether or not an art amenity is required, and if so, he can put that in the pocket park.
Okay.
Right. It's
That-
going to have piers that you walk from pier to pier, and that's why it has to be done in a linear fashion, because it's going to start with Scott's Old Fields and then go to Bel Air, spelled Belleaire, and then go to the normal town, the way it's spelled now. It's going to have a big sign that lights up. It's going to be very nice.
So, there you
Thank
go.
So regardless of how people enter it, those could be rearranged in some fashion.
You're talking about the access?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
I think it's basically just flipping the island on the other side.
What's the consensus here on that?
I would again leave it up to the developer.
Okay. Keith,
Sorry, Kevin.
Don?
Well,
No,
I will
I mean,
argue
just-
that point in one sense. You guys are making finding a fact that the pedestrian access is safe. So if if what you see out there is okay, then you go with that.
If they just moved the dumpsters down and ran it through,
The dumpsters really have to stay right where they're at, because that's how the trash gets there, and if it's moved over, then it becomes very difficult. I'm not saying you have to do it, I'm saying that these are comments that I've made, so.
So just need a consensus. Leave it up to them, or suggest it? Or not suggest it, but require it?
I'm of a mind to leave it to the developer.
Yeah, I think we can lose the developer. The developer knows how some of the members of the commission feel, and I guess if they agree, then, they'll do that. If not, then they'll do their own thing.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not- I keep siding
Anything else,
with you.
guys?
What is it?
Huh?
I keep siding with you. I can see the logic in that. Okay, but consensus-wise, it's fine. All right. Are there any other, we do,
Escorts to walk people to their cars.
other thoughts that you need?
I don't think so. I think that pretty much covered it. Did we miss anything, Kevin?
I can't think of anything else.
Okay.
Okay.
So you need a motion for
Tabling it.
Table.
table it.
For a written opinion to be put together, and you'll make a decision in April.
Tabling, not continuing.
Tabling, correct? Tabling.
Yes, table your decision, and instruct Kevin and I to do a written opinion.
Right,
Oh.
that means there's no public hearing in April.
Also move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, are we to review the annual report?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much for joining us. And we're going to continue with this meeting, so if you could please exit quietly, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
They sat very patiently. They've even missed the dreaded Joe Biden.
Yeah, I know.
That's.
Okay,
Hold on 1 second.
all right.
You do not have to continue, we're done.
I apologize. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just, yeah.
I can't make this stuff up, so.
Nope, I got you.
Yeah,
I
you-
should have come to work in exercise clothes, but it was in a rush.
It's all good.
You're good, yeah, this is not
Yeah.
a special development, so you are good to go. Your work is done. All right, hold on 1 second, I gotta reconnect. Okay. You have your annual report out?
Yes.
Yep. All right, lovely new town hall and police department on the cover.
Yeah, like that.
There is a certificate of adoption, so please don't leave, Lois, until you've signed it. Table of contents, these are all the lists of the folks who are commission and board summary for Planning Commission, Board of Appeals, and Historic Preservation Commission. So all these folks served during the year. Some have resigned a portion of the way through, but they've been replaced. Capital improvements, obviously, new town hall and police department. Is there any questions about the town hall and police department?
No.
Homestead,
Beautifully done.
huh?
Beautifully done.
Yeah, Homestead Park, Bel Air reviewed each of the municipal parks. The big one was Homestead that needed to have handicapped access, and also to have, what we wanted to do is take the basketball court and convert it to 2 pickleball courts.
All right. I just want to say something. Do we have to have this about the new town hall and the police department? The heart that was out there, that my wife and one of her former students, and it kind of took a hit when it was taken out and stored. And she's been working off and on for about the last 2 months and trying to restore the heart. And I know the guys over in Public Works are probably thinking, why hasn't she done yet? But you can only do a couple pieces at a time. You can only glue them on there because you have to hold them on there. You can't tape them on there. You have to hold them on there. And there's a grouting procedure, so it all takes time. So I just want you to know that the hearts are coming. She tries to go a couple days a week and work on it. So maybe in the next couple of weeks we can get it up.
Yeah, I think Steve talked about that in our staff meeting this morning, and
Oh, did he?
indicated that that's.
Yeah, but she's working on it. Okay, thanks.
Again, Homestead Park, parking added, stormwater management, pickleball, lighting, some adjustment to the landscape. So a lot of that stuff, I think, will improve that park quite a bit. That was developed using American Rescue Plan monies. Courthouse Square Phase 2 is Cortlandt Street. Cortlandt Street got rehabbed this year. If you walk down it, it looks pretty good. So the last phase is the upgrade to the county courthouse. That is not on anybody's agenda until the county decides they would like to do it, because they're gonna have to fund most of that.
Is that the front, like Main Street, Kevin?
Yep. And then Burns Alley, just had so much opposition from the existing property owners and business owners that the town board is just not interested in pursuing it at this time. We still have concept plans done, but nothing else.
What was their main complaint?
You name it. I mean, they had, they just didn't, they wanted everything to stay the same. Change is bad. They wanted to maintain their service access and felt that the improving that area might make impact on that. So, yeah, it'll probably stay just as it is. Comprehensive planning, following the adoption of the comprehensive plan, there was a zoning reclassification. And I think you have a letter from town council regarding just rewording this so it's more appropriate.
Do we need to move to amend?
Right, based on her letter. Yeah, when you move to adopt this, then you just move to amend this section.
If you're okay with that, I sent it to Kevin, that revised paragraph, and like words, so you just plot it in there.
Right. I should never talk legalese. Annexations, there was two properties annexed into the town, which is very unusual. 221 North Tollgate Road, that's Mrs. Blum's property, which is next to Tollgate Road. And then 304, 308, and 310 Tollgate Road, which is kind of that empty lot that's across from, yeah, or what used to be Dick's. No, it is Dick's, yeah. Huh?
Well, yeah, here, you gotta go to here. This is below.
Oh, thank you for catching that.
Well, you could say, and then go to page 13. And where's page 13? Page 11, and you talk about the annexations, the projects. So that's what I thought you meant, following, but.
Yeah, I think what happened was Kathy inserted a lot of this into there. I'll just take a describe below off. Thank you. Development regulations, a lot of work that you guys did very early in the year, and then the town board did. I won't go through this, but it's all listed out. And that takes us all the way to 11. Planning Commission, kind of, you've got the assisted living. You also have the, again, there's the annexation. So that may be, I could say as described on page 11. The 109 East Churchville Road, Raising Cane's, and then the other Blum property. Harford Chabad, that they withdrew and then they haven't been back. I'm not sure it's a funding issue or what. Wellwood, which is the assisted living, again, that came back. It was continued, and they were finally approved in October. Raising Cane's, same thing. And then the let's see, this is Harford Mall. It was kind of the last thing done in November and December. And we haven't had Ashley Sherwood come back for her parking issue. I don't know if she was able to get it or not. Board of Appeals, special exception for the assisted living, special exception for a cottage house on 137 Williams. And then that special exception for the beauty nail barber area, that never went forward because there was internal issues with the owners. And then standard on bond was the variance for Board of Appeals. Historic preservation, also very busy. We got requests for historic designation for 124 West Gordon Street. And then several requests for upgrades to their existing properties. And you can see some examples of those. Transportation, we had wayfinding, which is started, and we still haven't installed it. And also ID signs and park signs. We're going to try to take care of that in the next 2 or 3 months. Mapaw Heritage Trail, kind of completed. We've no more work done in the town of Bel Air. It's moved on to the county. Safe Streets.
It says the extension to Forest Hill, that's not done, right?
No, not completely.
Do you know the timetable on that, or?
I think it's later this year. This fall, I believe.
I just thought maybe the money dried up when Barry went out and Bob came in.
No, I think the money was always there, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you know what historical building was judged the winner for the kids? The certified local government for the historical preservation awareness, they do the school poster contest. I was just kind of wondering what building.
Where are you at?
It's right before community facilities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Submissions for adjustments. I don't know. I know that each school gets a winner. Each school gets honorable mentions, and they pick whatever, property they like. But usually, a lot of them do the armory. I know that. Again, Safe Streets for All still continuing. That'll wrap up at the end of June. Rockfield Memorial Tree Grove, that's a new designation. The Shamrock Memorial Tree Grove is full. No more trees. So the new designation is right next to or in between the ball fields and the Chesapeake Sensory Playground. Water sewer is basically the same as before. A lot of this other stuff is kind of fill in. It's, the farmer's market, the sustainability committee doing some of their stuff. We're actually now looking at doing a new strategic plan for the year. Some of this will go away next year because it's really not, it's kind of worn out. Let's see. Some of the future activities, Thomas and George Street. You're probably going to see that go under construction end of summer. So that'll be all of Thomas from Kelly all the way to Bond, and then George from Kelly all the way to the entrance to this Plumtree Park. It's likely that we're not going to have enough money, so George Street will probably be the one that is removed. And then Plumtree Park, this is about the last thing we would do. It's taking and asphalting the existing parking lot, which is now gravel, and putting a top coat on the basketball court and restriping it, making that work, and then adding some graphics and whatnot to make it a little bit more, festive, and then some amenities associated with that. We're also looking now at expanding that and taking what we did in Shamrock Park with the rubberized surface and putting it there and possibly in the Rockfield Park. No, did I say Rockfield? No, Homestead Park, sorry.
I still wish you could put those trees up for that Kenmore, right across from the high school, Kenmore townhouses. To me, they're so depressing looking. There's nothing to give shade to those.
Oh,
little-
those townhouses right next
Yeah.
to the high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not pretty.
No.
I don't know what's gonna happen with those. There's some guy down in Florida owns them. And obviously he barely keeps them updated, but just enough to not be in violation.
But the town couldn't put trees in that.
We could. They are all in that whole area in front of their townhomes and a portion of their parking lot is in state highway right away. So we just have to get permission from state highway to do it. We might do that. Let's see, planning activity map. There's one change here. The Hartford Mall is not shown correctly. But that's the only thing I could find that was wrong. So this is all the different properties in town that have developed. It's not really that much, so. And you have a copy of that, I think. Let's see. Now, this is the 2022 comprehensive plan. This will start to get filled in a lot more. It's a new plan, not much has been done. So next year, you're gonna see this a little bit, some more notes on it. And probably you'll see colors reflecting whether or not it's been partially completed or completed. So that goes for quite a while here. Adequate public facilities, those are just the APF legislation. You obviously know that that's changed. And building permits, this is always interesting. Supposedly, we're a town that's wide open, right? New residential single-family development, 1. Just 1. New commercial at all is 3. Now, you have additions and you have commercial renos, but that's all you got for permits. It's been quiet. Then annual report worksheet, that is, we have to do that, and it's not in here. I do apologize for that, but that's one that's a form that we have to fill out for the state, if you're okay with just knowing that it's gonna be put in there. And then, let's see, this is use and occupancies, I believe, and that shows a little bit more. New commercial 2, no residential. And that's it. I know it took longer than I should have, but.
What's a few more hours?
What about the,
It's already 9:42.
are we gonna, are we
Yeah.
gonna address the?
Yes. Oh, it might be, because we have a little bit more to go. This is not something you have to decide on right now.
Wait a minute, do we want to deal with this report?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we need a motion, we need an amendment, and then we need a motion to adopt.
Right.
Which one do we want first? Do we want the amendment first?
But you can make that part of your motion.
All right, I move that we adopt the 2023 annual report amended to, on page 6, paragraph 2, consistent with the recommendation of council, following adoption, et cetera, et cetera.
You want to change the Hartford Mall, the way it looks on the map?
That's the only one she gave me, so that's it.
I've noted that one. That's the only,
Okay.
I would say yes.
This one's legal.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, people do bitch
I'm
about
not
maps,
important,
too.
obviously.
We're
Not important as you.
We're in court for this one.
Okay. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, you have a letter in front of you where Upper Chesapeake has requested review of a requirement that dates back to 2017, December of 2017. And it's
It's when you required a fence
Mhm.
in the, basically in the.
On the back side of the property.
Right. They're, what they're requesting is not really correct. It should be considered a clarification and not a complete, they're still gonna have to provide the fence. Because they really, you can't just say, you know, their time for appealing your decision is gone. And, what they want to do is to have you clarify the height, the material, even though it's in the approval, the height, the material, and the location.
So that could be adjusted if we wish.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm sorry, Jen, what did you say last?
We could adjust that height to a lower height if we wish, or to a higher height, or whatever, or.
Well, if according to Kevin, I'm not doubting he's not telling me not correct, but they got the height, they got the material, and it's on the site plan, right?
It is, it's on a drawing that was made that night, as to where its location is.
Okay.
So they're all there. I'm just saying whether or not we want to clarify that to be a bit more reasonable.
Ignoring the requirement for 7 years, the concern
Yeah,
now.
so, I mean.
I wasn't
the
enforcing
period
it 'cause it's-
The way I'm looking at this, I looked at the code after him and I talked. Their appeal period is overlays. You know, you don't have to entertain this. But if they wanna come in and modify it, they could file a modification, but they gotta go through the process. And come before the board and say, for whatever reason, you know, it's impractical, we can't run through the floodplain, whatever reason. It can't be, I just don't want to do it. Y'all said, this is what you gotta do.
I didn't, I voted against it. I thought it was a dumb idea by us. I remember it very well.
I'm concerned because it's located in the floodplain, and I think that a chain link fence in the floodplain is a problem.
It's a chain link fence.
That's
Yeah.
what they identify as a 8-foot chain link fence.
8-foot chain link fence.
So,
Okay. I mean, again, if you want to tell them just benignly, if you want a modification, what a quote, the approval, submit a request to the planning commission, and they can say whatever, and y'all can say.
Otherwise, you
"Yeah,
need
we
an
don't
8-foot
think
chain
that's
link fence.
reasonable."
huh?
That
Otherwise,
would- that
you
would
need an
have-
8-foot chain link fence.
That would be up to
It's
us
up to you
getting
guys.
rid of the requirement altogether, right?
Yeah, it would.
I'll
It would be
vote
a
for that.
modification.
7
This
years.
was all because Pat Sullivan
Yep.
showed up and
Yep.
said that somebody, I,
Yeah, the guy
I don't-
ran through his property,
right.
broke into his house, yada, yada.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily that person broke in. They walked through a door that was open. But I really think this is overkill. And I think that you have a chance, if you want to correct it.
I would like that.
But it's up to you.
At this point.
Pat had it in his crawl for the hospital because at the time, what did you say, it was 216?
17.
17,
He wasn't even living in the house.
yes, his wife was there.
Yeah, he got the boot. So,
He was also pissed off about the helipad.
oh, yeah.
He was upset in general.
And we accommodated them, so
Yeah.
that's what we did.
Well, part of the problem was the utter arrogance of the Upper Chesapeake people.
That's true too. Yep.
Luckily, I think the administration's changed since then.
Well, that was the lawyer that they sent that caused the problem. Remember, he was the one that was so arrogant.
He was citing the
It was like,
Constitution.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Sheldon
Yeah.
went too far.
You have to go back and listen to the minutes for
Then they
that.
didn't,
What was it?
after that, they just sent Joe. and it
In-house
was
counsel.
Much better.
Oh, whoa, geez, like they know me.
Now,
So-
would you do that then? Could you go back to the, suggest that?
Right, so what I'll do is I'll take a look at the letter and and Liz and I will talk to them and say, okay,
Tell them there may be votes to just get rid of the whole thing.
right, and
Possible.
if that's the
Can't
case,
speak
then
for the
great.
others.
But,
You're
I just,
nice.
Don't bring that
come in
guy
here with an
back.
attitude, if you're nice.
Don't bring another guy back.
yeah, he's probably not even there anymore.
What, Joe Snee represents them, doesn't he?
He does, but it wasn't Joe.
Oh,
Oh, no, forget the guys. in
All
there.
right, I'll go back to them and make that clear. Because I had been putting off that fence to be during the UNO for the addition to the cancer center or the surgical center, whichever is last. That's coming up. Both of those are finishing up. So I kind of told them, I said, last chance. So, all right, that's all I got.
Before we go, how do we come up with putting Prospect Mill and Hickory into our development regulations for overcrowding in schools?
They have a portion of their attendance area that's in the town.
Who here goes to Prospect Mill in town? of Bel Air?
The property, the Dawes and Thurlow Courts on St. Margaret's, or St. Matthew's.
Wow.
Really?
Yep. That's, goes to Prospect Mill, which is totally stupid.
So,
But,
but before that got annexed into town, we had nobody in town going to Prospect Mill.
correct. And then the only thing that goes to Hickory Elementary is,
So why did they get bypassed and not go to Fountain Green?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm just looking at and why not Ring Factory included in our area as well? There are a lot, Fountain Green and.
I don't think Green Factory's in our area.
No, well, that's what I'm saying, it's not, but I'm saying.
Probably a matter of enrollment, where they have
But
enrollment.
Fountain
shortage.
Green and Ring Factory are a lot closer than Hickory
Uh-huh.
and Prospect Mill.
Right. You're correct. And it may be that once Homestead Wakefield opens up in the expanded form, they may grab that. I know theirs is this weird U shape that goes around Ring Factory. I mean, it's just
No,
the way they've got it.
Like gerrymandering congressional districts.
Yeah, and I just heard that the county just acquired property.
Over at Fountain Green.
Fountain
the
Right.
old,
on the other side.
Proposed nursing home.
Right.
Yeah,
Retirement-
Evermar,
retirement.
Evermar.
That one I wanna see what happens, because, I mean, that is like,
Well, they're putting
you
it,
can walk to Fountain Green from Eagle Rock.
Right.
So I'm like, you know.
they're
I'm
putting an
hearing,
elementary
you know,
school
oh,
plus
it's
John
straight
Archer
up,
School
and-
there, or whatever they
Yes.
call John Archer these
I'm
days
like,
because
they
of.
can take that school and apply it to Prospect Mill and everything that way. They don't have to come towards the town, they can go the other way, well, easily.
Well, if you look at the growth in the town is really limited in the future.
And we're all aware we won't be dealing with the abutting school issue anymore, right? As of Monday night, that's done, right?
As of Monday night, yes. The abutting is gone, but no, school is over 110% except for Homestead Wakefield.
What with the new school that they've added, that will go away?
Well, it's not.
I don't know.
It's
Yeah,
just-
I don't
That's
know.
just a land acquisition right now,
Yeah.
so who knows,
That's probably several years away.
at least, yep.
That's all I got.
Be interesting. Okay, we're not gonna do the status report,
Nah.
okay?
That was the
You
status
guys want-
report.
oh, yeah, that's true.
For next month, you have the continuation of this. You have Z-Vault, and then there is a possibility of another project coming through the door, which is 100 Cortland, and it's satellite parking for a proposed group home. But they have.
The ordinance gives you 6 to 7 days.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then fee and lieu is being changed, so that's gonna head your way.
And Raising Cane got worked out?
Everything but one item, which is the, they have a dumpster enclosure in the floodplain. And they need to make sure, I think they've reduced it down so it doesn't qualify for any kind of review, but we just need to work that out.
So, still trying to torpedo no more apartments down this fall? Is that what you're saying in terms of your
Fee and lieu? The proposal is to remove the option for fee and lieu for open space from every zone except for B2. I have a feeling I know what your answer is gonna be, but, you know, they'll probably ignore you. Uh-huh. It doesn't work anymore? Yeah, who did the public amenity for that? Probably, right? Yeah. That's good to know. And it's on us to repair, so I'll talk to. Yeah. Not even close. I'll talk to Steve. I'm not sure how high on his priority list that'll go. But. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. He just emailed us and said he was out of town.
This is a long night.